Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see everybody in person and also virtually for our July 10th, 2025 Landmarks Commission meeting. In compliance with notification requirements of Ohio Open Meeting Law and Section 101.021 of the Codified Ordinance of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conducts its meetings based on Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by roll call vote. Recusal from any case due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the beginning of the presentation. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting has the opportunity to be heard, virtual attendees will use the raised hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raised hand feature can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile versions and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking the raised hand icon again and muting your microphone. Call-in users can unmute by using *6. All meeting activities are being recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube. All requests to speak on a particular matter submitted through proper channels have been considered. Proper channels for communications are sending an email to the landmarks@clevelandohio.gov email address with a comment or a letter, calling and or leaving a message at 216-664-2532, or sending a letter or dropping off comments at City Hall located at 601 Lakeside Avenue, Suite 519. Communication with members of the body must follow proper channels for consideration. Any comments received by the stated deadline are collected by the Landmark staff and disseminated to the commission members prior to the scheduled meeting. Mr. Musson?
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. To go over the meeting rules and procedures, the chair will call each agenda item and then each applicant will be invited to proceed through their presentation. Each presentation should be completed prior to questions and comments from the commission in order to facilitate a smooth presentation. Once the presentation is concluded, the chair will ask Landmark staff to summarize Design Review Advisory Committee recommendations and any public comments received. The deadline for public comment is noon on the Tuesday prior to any regularly scheduled Cleveland Landmarks Commission meeting. Any received comments are distributed to commission members prior to the meeting. Staff will also identify any members of the public present and scheduled to speak. Public comment is allowed at the discretion of the chair, and any individual providing public comment is permitted 2 minutes to speak to the agenda item in which they have an interest. The chair will then request a recommendation from staff. The commission will then begin deliberations and project review. Any commission member except the chair may make a motion at any point after an agenda item has been called.
All right. We'd like to call the July 10th, 2025 Landmarks Commission meeting to order. Mr. Musson, please call roll.
Ms. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Dreyer? Mr. Dulick? Councilmember Gray?
Here.
Mr. Lozier?
Here.
Director Mersman?
Here.
Mr. Sambry?
Here.
Mr. Strickland?
Here.
Mr. Trasick?
Here.
Dr. Williams?
Here.
And Ms. Trott?
Here.
Madam Chair, we do have quorum. I'd also like to note for the record that myself and Jessica Beam are present from the Landmarks office, and we have Patty McGinty Aston from the Law Department representing us today.
All right. Excellent. Well, we will then begin with our certificates of appropriateness. We'll begin with our first applicant. We'd like to welcome our first applicant and ask them to announce themselves and tell us about your project. The first applicant is a sign box wrap located Shaker Square in the Southwest Median.
Good morning, Mark Balin, Diamond Signs and Graphics. Our project, this is actually the second year we've come before this committee, is wrapping a traffic signal box on the southwest portion the median, I should say the south median, the west portion of the Rapid Freeway in Shaker Square. And that being a historic district is why I'm here today. A little bit of the history. This is actually being forwarded by Diamond Science and Graphics and the Shaker Arts Council. This is a collaboration we've had for several years now. As seen up there are some of the boxes we've done over the years. The one to the right at it says 2024. That's the box we wrapped on the south medium on the east portion last year. And that's the one we presented before this committee last year. If we can go to the next slide. This shows the exact location of the signal box. As noted, this is basically on the south of the rapid tracks there, west portion there. The rectangles on both images show the location. Next, please. This is the box as it currently is, all four sides with some context views of it and some of the background. Next, please. And how it currently looks and the design that is being proposed. This is called A Night at the Fair by Renee Parker Boyle. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project was reviewed by the Greater Cuyahoga Valley Historic Design Review Advisory Committee on July 1st. The committee was excited to see another wrapped signal box. They've seen a few so far, and they were supportive of the project and recommended approval.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Our staff recommendation report is essentially just going to be an email from the Public Art Coordinator, Tara Petrus, who was unable to join us this morning. She says, with vinyl wrapping being an effective graffiti deterrent for utility boxes, I support this project as a low impact way to add some additional visual interest to the existing infrastructure at Shaker Square, complementing the existing box they wrapped on another quadrant last year. With the box being owned by the city, we did get written permission from Commissioner Mavick on June 25th to wrap this box. It was approved by the Greater Cuyahoga Valley Historic Design Review Advisory Committee on July 1st. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you. Usually I don't turn it off, that's why. I'm in full support of the proposal. I think it's a great opportunity to bring artwork into the community and deter any type of graffiti. So I think I'm in full support of the proposal. Any other questions and comments from the commission?
Yes, how you doing? This is Councilwoman Gray.
Hello, Councilman.
Hi, Chair. Chair, thank you for this. Yes, I am in full support too as well of the colorful arrangement they are bringing to Shaker Square. Will enlighten that area and also will help bring more constituents in the area as well as planned from the steering committee when I was on it. So I am in full support as well.
Thank you, Councilwoman.
You're welcome.
Any other questions and comments from the commission? Would someone like to put forward a motion? Mr. Lewison?
Madam Chair, I'd like to put forward a motion to approve as presented.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Full support. I think I heard Mr. Sandberry because he's next to me. So Mr. Sandberry can second it. Any further discussion? Right, not seeing any. Mr. Musson, please call roll.
Right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Director Mersman,
Yes.
Mr. Sandberry,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Trosick,
Yes.
Dr. Williams,
Yes.
and Ms. Trott.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Excellent. Congratulations. We look forward to seeing your project move forward. And we'll then move on to our next applicant located at 2014 West 53rd Street, Crystal Bird Mural. Good morning. You don't mind just hitting your mic on?
Yeah.
Hello, Ariel here with Black Brain Group. And this project where the art garden was catalyzed by the Transformative Arts Fund. This project represents the first privately funded mural at 214. That is my studio, personal studio. So really excited that the program has legs beyond what the city started. Yeah, let's move forward. The building is a nondescript warehouse on Lorraine and 53rd Street and has no architectural details of note, but does have, through the years of repair, like an interesting graphic detail through like the black striping and black doors, black windows. And the mural that we're proposing takes that into account and extending like that black detail and doing a flat black background onto the side of the building with the crystal dove being the reflective element that contrasts heavily from the flat background. And the imagery it was representing, we did a crystal heart and what happens when, you know, that breaks out of its cage and becomes the dove, you know. So it's really cool way of like freedom starts at the heart. Yeah. And went through the historic review and just here to make sure that it's all good. I don't know. There's much more to say. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Just leave it on. Before we get to our questions and comments, we're going to review the design review committee's comments first. Design review comments?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project was reviewed by the Historic Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee on July 3rd. They were very supportive of it, noted it would be a wonderful addition to the neighborhood, and recommended approval.
All right, thank you. And landmark staff recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As with our last project, we do have some comments from Tara Petrus, the city's public art coordinator. She says, although it is not technically part of the Mayor's Transformation or Transformative Arts Fund, this is a privately funded extension of the TAF work by one of the awarded artists, Ariel Vargas, and was approved by the Historic Ohio City Design Review Committee on July 3rd. I am in support of this mural at this particular location, which is also in the vicinity of another TAF mural previously approved by this commission at the Judith. It adds to the public art landscape in the neighborhood, although the building is raw brick on this particular facade, with there being black trim around the windows along with the black band around the building. I feel it complements and respects the architecture without hindering any historical significance. In my opinion, it actually improves it and makes it more visually interesting while balancing the modern and historic aspects between the mural and the building itself. Additionally, we received an email of support from Councilwoman Spencer, whose ward this is in. She stated in part, it will be amazing to have this public art investment. West 53rd is a surprisingly busy north-south corridor and connects Clark and Lorraine Avenues, and this location is steps away from the trailhead of the Red Line Greenway. Hundreds of people will see this beautiful example of public art every day. I'm thrilled. So that's from Tara and staff. I mean, you know, the staff is supportive of this proposal. I mean, I guess we're always a little concerned about painting unpainted brick, but given that this is a non-primary facade, I think we're comfortable with it in this case.
Okay, thank you. Then we will open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Jessica, there you go, that's perfect. Thank you. We'll open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. I guess two clarifying questions that I'll start with. I apologize if I missed it. Who's the owner of the building?
The owner is Naja Hutchinson.
And are they in support and aligned on this one?
Yeah, they sent the letter of approval.
Yes, yeah, I believe Tara collected that. That's
Perfect.
part of our process before it gets this far as
Okay,
typically we
perfect.
have that.
Just I didn't hear that. Usually it's noted. And are there any elements at the cornice of the building or the parapet that are noteworthy that need to be, or the corners of the building that we should take note of, or are they fairly
No,
nondescript?
it looks like the typical, you know,
Yeah,
terracotta.
and it doesn't have any descript edge brick like the Judith did.
Right.
To consider. It didn't have any of the top crowning elements or bottom crowning elements. They're like really nondescript.
Okay.
Just the normal like camelback coping at the top.
The only thing would be on the edge tile of the roof. There's like a little rounded edge tile.
Yep,
But
terracotta. Yep.
that's not gonna get touched.
Okay. I am in support of the proposal as long as the mural doesn't go up onto the terracotta coping, or even the corner brick, just how it turns. I think that would just be a good, it looks like you've already done that in your mural, but I'm in support if it respects those two architectural features. Mr. Strickland?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, I think that what my comment was going to be was that typically we do ask that kind of a masonry frame be retained around the mural. But I think in this particular case, bringing the dark background, the black background, all the way to the corners and up to the coping is very appropriate and unusual. But there's no significant features, major masonry features on this building, and so I think that bringing it all the way to the corners and to the coping is most appropriate, and can't wait to see it go up. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. Other questions and comments from the commission? Mr. Sandberg?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, typically I'm not in support of painting raw brick. I think I'm okay in this case. My one condition, I think, Ms. Trott touched on this. The toothing between the front brick and the side brick, I would prefer to see the nicer front brick unpainted. So I don't know if where you want to draw that line, if it's a straight line or you follow the toothing of the brick. But I think the nicer front brick should be exposed.
It's a little hard to interpret. Were you?
Yeah, well, we probably just go to just the edge so that we want to respect not touching the.
But that brick wraps the edge. It looks
That's
like,
what I mean, like just go to
1.5
the edge
courses.
that faces south versus like full wraparound, like a.
So not paint the 4 inches of the brick that is exposed.
goes around.
I think that's what we're saying.
Right.
Right, so that you pull it back the 4 inches, the depth of the face brick,
Gotcha.
so that you could strike a line there
Yeah.
and paint from that point on, but don't paint the edges of the face brick.
That face.
Correct. Correct. Does that
Yeah.
agree?
Yeah. I think that would be okay. Yeah.
Perfect. It's like whack-a-mole.
Thank you.
All right, any other additional questions and comments from the commission? Would someone like to make a motion? Mr. Sandberg?
I'll make motion to approve as presented, with the requirement that the camelback terracotta coping and the front nicer brick that wraps the corner be retained,
All right,
unpainted.
unpainted. So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Lozier. With motion second, any further discussion? Not seeing any. Mr. Musson, please call roll.
All right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes,
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Director Mersman,
Yes.
Mr. Sandberg,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Trasick,
Yes.
Dr. Williams.
Yes.
and Ms. Trot.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Excellent. Congratulations. We look forward to seeing you move forward. It's an exciting project. Before we move on to our third applicant, we do need a motion to untable.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion on table.
Thank you, Mr. Lozier. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Mr. Muslim, please call roll.
All right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Director Mersman,
Yes.
Mr. Sambry,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Krasik,
Yes.
Dr. Williams,
Yes.
and Ms. Trot.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
All right, then we would like to welcome the applicant forward to announce yourself and tell us about your project. And since you were here just recently, you can just tell us, probably review the updates since we saw you 2 weeks ago.
Good morning,
Okay.
everyone. I'm Eric
Oh.
Rose with DS Architecture, and I'd like to turn it over to Gabrielle Benson from our office to walk you through some updates.
Hi, everyone. Yes, we'll be reviewing the Flannery Georgalis offices in Ohio City. Next slide, please. We'll go through these slides rather quickly, just to jog everyone's memory. So we have the site here on West 25th Street and West 26th. The main building is next to a neighboring two-story building and has some parking in the back. The client will be expecting a lot of parking, or a lot of their clients to be approaching from that parking area. Here are some existing conditions that we kind of further investigated after the comments from last week. And next slide, please. And a historic image just to remind everyone what it looked like from the past. Next slide, please. So here we get into some of the updates that we have made since the last meeting that we attended. There was a comment about the treatment of the masonry on the south facade of the building. Instead of a painted finish, we are simply leaving the masonry, or rather we are repairing the masonry. As you can see in the existing facade, there's some damage to the masonry, especially towards the front of the building, and some parging that is towards the back. We're planning on just repairing the masonry that needs to be repaired and then covering that with a layer of parging that matches the existing stone details on the facade. Next slide, please. So here we have an updated elevation with some of the changes that we were able to make from last meeting, and we'll get into those details right now. So next slide, please. Just to review signage, after we had our last meeting, we have a similar sign towards the southern facade, or southern half of the front facade, a simple blade signage. We after our discussions and kind of comments about some confusion that might occur from the gated area around the front of the building, we have added a bit of signage that kind of directs people to the other entrance around the back of the building. And we also have included a bit more signage just for the front of the building itself. Next slide, please. In response to the comments that the color of the facade was a bit dark, we did adjust that to make the color a little bit lighter. Instead of a dark black color, we're using more of a bronze, gray bronze color that's slightly lighter, that still matches what the client was hoping for from the visual aspect of the facade, but lightens it up a little bit. Next slide, please. And then in response to the actual kind of windows and the window treatment, we did, after a bit more investigation, we did realize that there can indeed be transom windows behind or above the main glazing of the storefront. And we were also able to adjust the knee wall to be a few inches lower, as well as the transom windows to be shifted a little bit higher as well. So that way there's more room in that main glazing area. Next slide, please. And this is just to give a little bit of context for that storefront condition, where we have the soffit bumping out. The bottom of that actually is where the storefront will start, whereas previously it was believed to be below where we were planning the storefront to begin. So that gives us plenty of room for that transom window, and there shouldn't be any issues there. Next slide, please. And then after analyzing our space and the analysis of our egress patterns, especially with the main stairwell from the second floor, having the main egress right north of the gated area that we presented in our last meeting, we decided that it was in the gated area was in the best spot for the combination of factors that led to its position in the first place. And you can kind of see that gathering space connects from the inside to the outside. So we believe that this is the best spot for it. Next slide, please. And we would love to hear your comments and get any feedback. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the presentation. We'll, it didn't go back to local, correct?
Correct.
All right, then we will hear landmark staff recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, this was tabled at our last meeting, as you guys probably remember. The next day, I had a meeting with DS Architecture. They provided their part 2 from the State Historic Preservation Office. So we went over that, reviewed everything. Gabrielle did a good job of, I think, summarizing our discussion. We talked through a lot of points, kind of went into more detail about some of the concerns that were raised and how those might be resolved. And I guess I had a list, but like I said, I think she covered it well. And I feel like everything that was raised last time has been fairly well resolved. I guess the thing that I guess I had the most questions on was maybe the color of that south wall. They're proposing a stone color for the parging, which I think works. It's one of those tricky things, you know, you don't want to try and paint it red like a brick, but you want it to disappear. So do you go light, do you go dark? So I don't know if the commission has thoughts on that, but I think the solution they've come up with is a good one and would recommend approval.
All right, thank you for that summary of your recommendation. We'll then open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Go ahead, Mr. Stanberry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I want to commend the applicant on the changes and listening to us. I think it's a great move forward. I think all the changes definitely improved the storefront and in the building. I'm in full support. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stanberry. I guess I'll echo, I really do appreciate you taking our comments to heart and looking into the adjustments requested. I think they're a great improvement, to the design. My only sort of nitpicky, and this is a personal preference, is that this building is so symmetrical and you're occupying the full building. My personal opinion is I'd like to see the signage that's placed on that, front elevation maybe centered, which is maybe not because of its, I'm looking at Mr. Stanberry because he turned his head like, because it looks like you're occupying like half the building to me, where you are, occupying the full building and just, it's so symmetrical. But that's my personal opinion. It's not something I would object to, the project or make a requirement. Overall in full support though, besides that personal thing that I like symmetry.
If I may, just Madam Chair, regarding the signage, is that something that you guys are comfortable approving today based on the information they're providing, and then staff would handle the details? Or I mean, usually with a building rehabilitation like this, the signage comes back because it's not fully fleshed out.
That's right.
So I will leave it up to you whether you want to approve that today or put it down the road. I guess I also, from the applicant, was your intention to have the signage and the building approved today, or was this primarily just about the building?
This is mostly about the building. The signage is something we're still working through with the client.
Okay.
This is sort of a placeholder for now to let you know generally what we're thinking. But we're hoping to engage with the graphic designer sign company to help the exterior signage as well as the interior, wayfinding signage inside. So that's something we could come back at a later time. It'll probably be something similar to this, and I agree with the comments about symmetry. That is part of our desires to make it feel balanced as well. So we look to your discretion on what you'd like to do, but the signage is not a complete idea at this time.
Understood. Thank you.
So then I'd personally be comfortable if it came back to staff, knowing that it does show the full, fairly clear intent. Unless it varies dramatically, I'd personally be comfortable with it coming back to staff for approval.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions and comments from the commission? Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, this is an improvement for sure over the last proposal. And I do want to commend the applicant for retaining the metal ceiling on the inside. I think that's a wonderful detail, and I'm glad that you're preserving that and restoring that. But my question is regarding the bulkhead. There's not a lot of detail. I'm not quite sure what the treatment is on that, that lower section there. So if you could give me more information on that, I appreciate it.
Sure. I don't know if you can zoom in and maybe see it on this view that you're looking at. There are some details there, but essentially there'll be some, or even the historic photo might be a good reference as well, but there'll be some panel, insets. It's not going to be a flat surface, maybe the way that drawing is reading, but there'll be a of kind of there on the far left. You can see a little bit of the depth that it has. That's our intention, is to not recreate, but to pay tribute to that concept of a little bit of depth to that surface, if that helps.
Looks good. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Other questions and comments from the commission? I guess the one comment that I didn't comment previously on was the color of the parging. I am with staff. I think that's a tricky color because you don't want it to feel stark but it wants to blend well with the stone. So I would probably recommend the final color to come back to staff just to see how it appears with if your intentions are to match the stone, just to make sure we're all comfortable with it matching the stone. If has that, tanner color, since there isn't actually a color listed to match the existing stone, I'm comfortable with that, not the stark white gray, would be my preference.
That's what I thought as well. Yeah, it's as you said, it's tricky. We don't want to create a false sense of history or paint it red, because red would be, you're never going to match the brick, first of all, so it's going to bring more attention to the fact that it's not brick. So yeah, our goal there is really, it's not so much about matching the stone to make it look like stone, but just find a color that's harmonious with the rest of the materials, so that it feels cohesive and is not the first thing you look at, ideally. Hopefully there's other beautiful details on the building that are attracting your attention, and perhaps someday we'll be coming back to you with a mural idea too. So we're kind of trying to leave it as a blank canvas for now, and hopefully it falls into the background.
Excellent. Thank you for that feedback. Mr. Lozier? Okay. All right. Any additional questions or comments? If not, would someone like to make a motion?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to approve as presented, with the requirement that the color of the parging come back to staff for final review, and the signage be reviewed by staff, as long as it is similar to what's been presented.
All right, so we have a motion with two conditions. Do you have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Lozier. We have motion second. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. Mr. Musson, please call roll.
All right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Director Mersman,
Yes.
Mr. Sambry,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Trassick,
Yes.
Dr. Williams,
Yes.
and Ms. Trott.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Excellent. Congratulations. We look forward to seeing your project move forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Before we move into the next applicant, right, that's for tabling, we need to untable this case. Can we have a motion to untable?
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion on table.
Thank you, Mr. Lozier. We have a motion. Do you have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Sandberry. Mr. Musson, please call roll.
All right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Director Mersman,
Yes.
Mr. Sambry,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Trassick,
Yes.
Dr. Williams,
Yes.
and Ms. Trott.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Excellent. All right, I'd like to welcome the applicants to announce yourself and tell us about your project.
Good morning. This is Robert Hogue. We're talking about a siding application at 263 Hadam. And as a refresher, in the last meeting, I had requested to table it in the interest of getting feedback from Rhonda Curtis, the owner of the property, and our desire to show great respect to the Landmarks Commission. We have resubmitted this as the same with some additional photographs. There were a couple of concerns that led to that tabling. One was the condition of the paint, which we were able to represent in a photograph. And I believe that's on slide 3, if we could go there, yes. The condition of the siding, it's been painted several times, and in the owner's opinion and our opinion, it's time to re-side it. There were two concerns that I recall. One was the 5-inch was a little narrow, and the shake, Jessica, if you could go back to slide 1, please. Wanting to apply a shake on the gable above the windows, that it was not in the harmony. So I'd like to address any concerns and questions. I'm prepared in Rhonda's behalf to come to a compromise, again, wanting to be good citizens and respect to the Landmarks Commission and talk it through. So we're looking to re-side her property. Wanting to get some feedback. Is the 5-inch still a concern to the commission?
Well, before we go into our feedback, we need to just go through some formalities to hear Landmark's staff recommendations based on the resubmittal.
Fine, anything. I'm going to follow your lead.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, as Mr. Hodge, I think mentioned, I spoke with him a couple times. He clarified the scope of work. He's added the shutters into the rendering. They weren't able to add into the rendering the other details, but confirmed with him that that vent would stay, that all the trim elements would remain. So they want to apply the shake style above the trim elements in that gable area, and then the 5-inch lap vinyl below that, but maintaining all of those trim elements. Also, we discussed the condition during the last meeting. It was kind of presented that condition of the existing siding was fine. So I said that, the commission had our first question was, does it really need replaced? Does it need covered up? Is it that time? So I asked him to submit some images of the siding, which he has. You know, it I'm sure could be repainted. It doesn't, it looks like it's been well cared for over the years, but it's due for another coat of paint. And we also discussed sort of simplifying that front gable. You know, it's just straight, I think 7-inch lap siding now. Something closer to that would be more appropriate instead of adding another architectural detail like adding shake and 5-inch siding. So we went through all that. Again, you know, I don't think staff has any issue with applying the vinyl on the sides and rear. It's really that front gable where, you know, we question whether it's necessary at all. And if it is in that condition that requires replacement, then something closer to the style of the original would be more appropriate.
All right, thank you for that summary and for your recommendations. We'll then open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Who'd like to start us off? Mr. Strickland?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with staff that I don't have any problem applying the vinyl siding on the sides and rear of the house. But I think it's appropriate to maintain the character that exists presently on the front of the house. And if that requires prep and painting, then I would like to see that happen. One of the primary reasons is the rake boards have significant detail, and I would hate to see that wrapped and covered up. So I'd like to see that detail retained, which I think would require just prepping and painting as opposed to covering as part of the vinyl siding project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Strickland. Other questions and comments from the commission?
Yes, Madam Chair, this Councilwoman Gray.
Yes, go ahead, Councilwoman Gray.
Yes, thank you. I do support everything, but my question is, this is not my expertise. I'm gonna follow Mr. Strickland lead. Mr. Strickland, Mr. Strickland, also Mr. Hodge, when you do the vinyl siding on the side, what is the color of the vinyl siding, you know, for the front of the house to be the same color?
Be very similar. The official name is sandalwood.
Yes.
But it's a very similar color as to what it is today.
Okay. All right. That's it. I just wanted to understand that, you know, to make sure that, you know, make sure the coloration, you know, will be the same as Mr. Strickland stated.
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
thank you. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm in agreement with Mr. Strickland. I think the vinyl on the sides and the rear are fine. You know, this isn't a real large area. I don't think it'd be a huge hardship to maintain it by painting. It's not a real tall house. So, you know, people don't have to pull out super long ladders. So I think the front elevation should retain the wood, matching the color, the sandalwood color. That I think that color's very appropriate. So those are my comments. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Any additional questions and comments, Mr. Lozier?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm in agreement with my colleagues. I think repainting the front facade, scraping, repainting the front facade as is, I think it would be certainly preferred. I'm also in agreement that the sides and rear could go to the 5-inch vinyl siding. A question, would the intent be to remove the existing wood siding and replace with vinyl, or apply the vinyl siding on top of the existing wood siding?
We would apply it to the existing. first with insulation and then second, the actual siding. But the existing, to answer your question, the existing stays.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lozier. Mr. Stanberry?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am not in support of this whatsoever. I don't think that there's a reason to cover this with vinyl. There's no leaks. There's peeling paint, which can be scraped and painted. It's relatively easy maintenance. Vinyl applied over this is not maintainable. You can't repaint that. You would have to take it off and put up new vinyl if you were to make any changes. And this is the historic material. It's the original material. I am not in support of any vinyl on this building. I would recommend scraping, painting, and maintaining. And I think they've done a great job up until now. So I would prefer that they continue to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Stanberry.
Thank you.
Hearing fairly consistent feedback, would someone like to make a motion? Mr. Lozier?
Madam Chair,
I've got a question if I could, excuse me for interrupting.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Hodge.
Yeah, this is Robert Hogue. One of the thoughts was to, one of the indications in the last meeting was to consider a 7-inch siding. Consider removing the shake, which the concern was that it was not in character. To remove that shake and to apply a 7-inch vinyl siding, larger than the 5-inch as submitted. As a compromise, Rhonda Curtis would be willing to go to a 7-inch. It costs her $1,800 more, but out of respect and wanting to be a good neighbor, she would go to the 7-inch. She's indicated painting, in her opinion, is not the next move and would rather compromise with a larger clapboard 7-inch and likewise remove the shake on the gable. And I just wanted to offer that for discussion, if that helps gain approval.
Thank you, Mr. Hogue. We appreciate that. I think the item of note that the commission has commented on previously and are probably maintaining is that typically we do not approve vinyl in historic districts, but we make exceptions for the side and rear. So I think that's what we're saying here, is that we understand the and appreciate the ability or the willingness to compromise, but it's the material on the front that is why we're having this discussion. So I think we're trying to compromise and get vinyl on the sides and rear, is what I'm hearing from many of the commission members. It's the front that, you know, typically we do not allow vinyl. If it's not the original wood, we do accept something like a cementitious siding that represents the similar materials as a wood, and is a little bit more durable, as a compromise there.
Thank you.
Other questions and comments from the commission? Would someone like to put forward a motion? Ms. Anderson?
Hey, I will attempt to put forth a motion here. I move that we approve the 5-inch vinyl siding for the sides and the rear, and for the exterior elevation to be scraped, painted, and for the wood siding and the vent to be retained.
Use the front elevation that was.
front on the front elevation.
Okay, so we have a motion with a condition. Do we have a second?
Second?
Thank you, Councilwoman Gray. We have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion?
Just a point of clarification. This is Robert. With this guidance, is it possible to get a conditional approval? I'd want to get feedback from Rhonda Curtis. I'd like to ask if there is a letter indicating that with these changes, there's approval. Is that the potential outcome here today?
Yeah, so the motion on the table would allow you to move forward with putting the 5-inch vinyl siding on the sides and rear of the home, but it doesn't grant any approvals to apply vinyl to that front dormer. So that front dormer would need to be scraped and painted. So the approval that's on the table is just for vinyl on the sides and rear.
We do have a beautiful round gable vent, and I'm sorry I couldn't represent it in my picture, but it's very important to Rhonda to preserve that round gable vent, and we will be able to do that for her. If I put a 7-inch on that gable of vinyl, again, I'm just working to clarify. Is that a possibility, or is it a strong indication for paint?
Yeah, the motion on the table right now is for painting that front dormer and vinyl on the sides and rear. So there's, I think the commission has heard the compromise of putting the 7-inch on that front dormer, and allowance of that is not included in the current motion.
Excuse me for interrupting again. Herb Schoen, owner of Home Corp, Garfield 12323, has stepped in. He would like to ask a question, make a comment.
Hello, how are you today? I was overhearing the meeting with Bob, and I'm a little bit confused. I've attended, been involved in many of these meetings over the course of my 40 years in business, and this one's got me perplexed. If we are replicating the exact size, the exact shape, and color of the existing wood siding in the front gable, along with the exact dimension and shape of the front gable louver, certainly we can point to dozens, if not hundreds, of examples of homes that have been sided with vinyl material in the district that have been approved. There's precedent that has been set. What is it about this home that makes it unique and makes it ineligible for approval? And please help me understand. As I'm advocating for the customer, who's a very reasonable woman and has already agreed to spend additional dollars to get the material that replicates the size and shape of the existing dilapidated, deteriorated wood siding that will not hold up to paint well over a continuum of time on the front elevation or any other elevation of her home. I'll be quiet now and listen for your answer.
We appreciate the homeowner and her desire to improve her property. You know, obviously she's taken good care of this house, and we want to allow her to continue to have a great, home to live in good condition. Vinyl is not a material that is acceptable in historic districts. So it's the material.
Time out. If vinyl is not
Excuse
a
me,
material
excuse me,
that's
sir.
acceptable
Excuse
in
me,
this
sir.
historic district,
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah.
Let me finish. I was answering your question, so please hold your comments. We held ours. In addition, the other houses that had vinyl probably didn't follow the correct process. So they actually weren't approved. They just moved forward with the renovation, so they're non-compliant. We commend you and the owner for coming through the right process and getting approval, but those are the requirements here. As we said, we're trying to make a compromise for the owner and allow the vinyl on the sides and the rear, even though typically we don't. So that is why we are trying to get to a compromise, and there is something on the table currently to allow her to move forward with what she desires for the sides and the rear, but not the front. Please proceed. Go ahead with your comment.
All right. So what you're suggesting is that every other house in the district that has vinyl siding on it has done so without permit or without the authorization of this board.
I
which,
can't
of course,
comment.
Which is required for a permit. Oh no, it's my turn to talk.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So I'm going to prove to you that precedent has been set, and vinyl siding has been used on several other projects in the district. I can't do that today, but I'm going to do it. And it's simple enough to find out by just cross-referencing the addresses and whether a permit was pulled for said address. We've done that in the past. The other part is that I'm having a hard time with is is it in the charter, somewhere in writing where vinyl siding is not permitted in this historic district? Where can I find that?
Madam Chair, this is Patty. I don't think that he can go and look up whatever rules and codes that he'd like. This is a discussion with a motion on the table. If there is no further discussion, the commission should proceed.
All right. Thank you. That was
Very well. So arbitrarily, we've decided that we cannot put.
Madam Chair, I don't think he has the right to proceed. Excuse me, sir. You don't run the show.
Nope. Thank you. That was our representative from our legal department here. So as mentioned, this is a discussion by the commission to finalize the motion that's on the table. So we will continue then with the motion and finalize this case. So we have a motion, we have a second. We're going to close the table for final additional comments. Mr. Musson, please call roll.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Councilmember Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Lozier?
No.
Director Mersman?
Yes.
Mr. Sambry?
No.
Mr. Strickland?
Yes.
Mr. Tresick?
Yes.
Dr. Williams?
Yes.
And Ms. Trott?
No.
Madam Chair, the motion passes by a vote of 5-3, or 6-3.
6-3. All right, your project has passed with the condition related to the front elevation. If you have further questions, please follow up with staff offline. Thank you.
Thank you for your consideration. Have a nice day, everyone.
You too. We'll now move on to our fifth applicant located at 11118 Clifton Boulevard signage. Like to welcome the applicant. Please announce yourself and tell us about your project.
Good morning to you all. My name is Brooke Livingston. I represent Be Next Signs. I am not Aldo Dor. He could not make the meeting currently. Right now we are talking about 11118 Clifton Boulevard, which as of right now is the Clifton Apartments, the Clifton Suites Apartments. Now, I do apologize if I go out of format. I have not been to one of these in this format before. Will you all scroll for me down?
Yes, just tell us when you want your slides advanced. There is a slight delay in the advancement, but please just let us know and Jessica will advance.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I really do appreciate that. So and this slide is perfect for right now. When we went to the first review, it was denied because the shape of the awning, we have gone with aluminum, you can see in the first picture, that extrudes about 36 inches total from the wall. And the original thing is going to be a cloth awning. Sometimes there's different materials that are used, but it's generally going to be a cloth or a sunbrella. When the customer first approached us, they wanted something that was going to be lower maintenance, something that was safer. That wasn't the best key, but the lower maintenance was. And they also wanted something that could stand the test of time. We all know, because we live in this area in Cuyahoga, in Summit, in Medina County, the amount of impact that wind has on literally everything that's outside. We have steered customers away from those large cloth, they're called circle awnings, for this very reason. If you look at pictures in the past of this building, it did have a nice looking awning. It is a cool style, I will admit that. But there's supposed to be poles that are attached that structurally prevent twist and also promote the structural integrity of the actual awning itself. In several of the pictures, you can see they're bent, they're scuffed, they're torn up, and as of right now, there is none there. And the last board made mention of the fact that they want to do circles to accentuate the already circle pattern that is present in some of the building. This much I can understand. We all have senses of nostalgia. So I can't deny the fact that is nostalgic. But as far as safety is concerned, as far as maintenance in an already somewhat dilapidated state of this building, our current sign, which again only extrudes about 36 inches from the wall, serves the purpose of the building owners, the customers, clients, and people who actually live in this area. If you notice, that front door is a single door. Why would there be a 6 to 8 foot awning extruding, again, a parachute, extruding from the building in a single door entrance? That has caused a lot of loitering. I'm sure you all could understand that. This cuts down 36 inches significantly on that and frees up that space for clients going to the businesses there and to their apartments. And if you see the second picture, you don't have to scroll down, but the second picture underneath, we are completely changing no, you don't have to scroll down. You can scroll back up. I'm sorry. The picture under, yes, the bottom picture there. We are doing a complete line of awnings in a darker blue color across the entire face of the building. We wanted the top sign, Clifton Suites, with the 50th Street number to match up with that as well, which is something that the circle awning, if you look at old pictures, does not do. So we were just seeking approval, or if not, get a better understanding of the notes that were given to us in the denial, where they wanted to speak to the character of the building. If we had, maybe a little bit more discussion or a little bit, further in depth of what the character of that neighborhood needs to be to align with Cleveland's vision, we would appreciate that as well. We're here to work together, not to be combative or anything of that nature, to have something that works for all parties involved, rises the value of this property and subsequent properties across the street in the surrounding area. So with that being said, any suggestions on what we have presented to you so far?
Thank you. Jessica, could you just continue through the slides so we can see the whole presentation before we move on?
And if you'll see, that is significantly heavier duty hardware than a traditional awning, especially the circle or the half circle kind, which has traditionally been there.
All right, thank you. Then we'll move on to Design Review Advisory Committee recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project was reviewed by the Historic West Cleveland Design Review Advisory Committee on July 2nd. At that time, the applicant or representative from Be Next Sign stated they were not the company responsible for installing it, since the signage and awnings are already installed. And so we did request, the actual contractor that installed it or the owner to be present. There was a lot of discussion on the material of the awnings. It's a vinyl material, shiny plastic, which a fabric or a less shiny material would be more appropriate. The arched openings and the details there are covered by this installed signage, and the white color, which has been there for a few years, doesn't really fit the building, and the lighting that's proposed, the downlighting on that awning that was installed, they didn't find appropriate. Went over like a round awning may be more appropriate, canvas, and that they understand that there's a need for a refresh, but possibly a darker color entry. Be better to blend a canvas material with stripes or another kind of material or color. So they're not opposed to like seeing a refresh on this building, but want it to be more appropriate. And so they did recommend denial based on the already installation, and that it detracts and competes with the character defining features of the building. And as I mentioned, that the covered canvas arched similar to previous styles and with awnings in a fabric material may be more appropriate for the building.
All right, thank you. Then we'll move on to Landmark staff recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Staff would agree with, I think, everything that came out of the local design review advisory committee. You know, we certainly understand the desire to refresh an image of a building when there's new ownership, or just, you know, sort of, you know, people like to make things look a little different sometimes. It's always an easier discussion when the work hasn't been done already. So I guess, you know, the biggest point staff would like is, are you asking for approval of the signage and the awnings as installed, or the signage and canopy as shown in your renderings? Because they're two very different signs. The address is totally different size. You know, they're just very different proposals. And just, you know, generally the vinyl awnings applied over that old shake pent roof that was added in, I don't know, the 1970s. Essentially, you know, at some point they changed the storefronts on the first level, then they had a shake pent roof, and then they added fabric awnings over it in subsequent years, and that's kind of been the way it's been handled, you know, for the last 40 years. Yeah, at least 20. So, you know, we understand wanting to cover up that shake, but the vinyl doesn't feel like an appropriate material, and we would agree that going to a rounded awning over the entrance, you know, with poles at the end, is a much more appropriate way to handle the entrance. So,
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you. We'll then open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Give us a second to discuss, and you can comment, or you can respond to our comments too. Open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Mr. Stanberry?
I guess I'd just like to have a point of question. What is on the table that we're approving? Are we approving the existing awnings and the signage, or are we just approving the signage?
Our understanding is that the applicant is coming forward for the signage and the awnings as one applicant.
Would the applicant like to confirm or deny that? Are you here for both the signage and canopy over the door, along with the awnings that are on the remaining portion of the front facade?
I believe the issue was with the signage itself and the awning over the main entrance. I don't believe there was an issue with the removal of the old awnings and new awnings across the face of the building. I could be wrong, but I believe it was just about the Clifton Suite sign and awning directly above the front door.
Since staff hasn't seen a permit application or other application for those awnings prior to now, we would include those in the discussion, because those have not been approved or reviewed by staff up until now.
Okay.
Okay, so everything is on the table for review and comment with this application, since none of it has been submitted and pulled a permit for, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Stanberry, other questions, or is that just the first clarifying question?
Sorry, yeah, that was just the first clarifying question, so I can kind of wrap my head around.
Perfect. Got it. Okay. Other questions and comments from the commission? Ms. Anderson, you look like you have something.
Thank you, Madam Chair. When I reviewed this case at home with the images that were presented, the references for this were a number of the commercial buildings, like the Clifton Cleaners and that kind of thing. And buildings where the commercial signs were located, as well as the purpose of the commercial signs, were much different than this. This is a very elegant classical building, and I think imposing that those kind of designs on this building just doesn't work. The awning with as were previously on the building, enhance the look of the building. I think this is a distraction. So
Right,
those
thank
are
you.
my comments.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Director Hirschman?
I have a couple of clarifying questions as well. So Secretary Messon had raised the question of whether we are considering the application, the proposed design versus the existing, what's on the building. Can we get a response to that?
Would the applicant like to clarify, are you seeking approval for what is rendered or what is installed? So you would, go ahead.
What is rendered?
So you would remove what is already installed, is what you're saying, and reinstall something new?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. My second clarifying question is around something Jessica said in the notes about having the contractor who had installed these come into the process. I'm also curious about when they were installed, if we know either of those pieces of information.
No, my company is not.
Yeah, staff isn't sure when.
They were installed
Madam
in the
Chair.
last 3 or so months. I live in the area, so I do know they were installed in about the last 3, maximum 6 months.
Okay.
They were installed.
Thank you. And I wonder what brought this applicant to the table here with us.
This,
Was there a violation?
yeah, was there a violation or did this come through a normal permitting process? Do you recall?
It came in through a permit through building housing.
A permit application to building and housing. Okay, thank you.
I mean, I just will ask this very stupid question, well, if this is a brand new applicant or proposal, then it's removing what is installed and replacing it with what's in the rendering for the signage over the main entrance, but it's for what is installed for the canopies currently is what I'm.
Yes, yeah, I guess, yes, the work that was done over the canopies, the vinyl awnings was not approved, so, I think it would be appropriate moving forward if you guys did approve something over the front entrance. They were taking that down and putting up a new sign. I think it would also be appropriate to require them to remove the existing awnings and replace it with something else that was proposed, or if nothing's proposed, that's kind of a question as to what would go there, but staff does not feel that the vinyl is appropriate, stretched, not at that extent.
Right. Okay. Okay. So we don't have to look at this. This is just what's installed. So, Jessica, could you go back to the proposed rendering? And is this internally illuminated? Is still what they're proposing?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I guess I will start us off as everybody else is still trying to wrap their brains around it a little bit, is because maybe I'm more familiar with the location. I am in support, as staff said, to do a refresh of the building. I think this building is a gem and it has gotten a little tattered. And so I appreciate the new owner wanting to invest in it. I do agree, though, with the comments of the local staff in the respect that I think the current proposal doesn't mesh well with the current architecture or the architecture of the building. And it's a very modern approach that has been placed in front of a very classical elevation. I also don't support the internally illuminated lettering because, as my fellow commission member had said, this is a residential building. It is for identification, but it's making it feel like a commercial building. The lighting, I do appreciate, and I don't object to. I think it's great to have bring lighting to the area. So I guess if a proposal that would work better with the architecture of the building, having a, arch shape versus the straight, shape that's been placed in front of the arch would be my preference and recommendation. It could be done through metal or fabric. It could have signage that is associated with it, but I am not in support of the current proposal. It's probably the best way to say it. Are there comments from the commission? Mr. Stanberry?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess another question to staff. Was there any historic photos that were found?
I don't think, we didn't do a lot of digging on this one. I know just from previous research, I think there's a photo out there that shows a portion of the first floor of this building where it had nice sandstone, columns and coinings and, big windows. That work was all covered up in the 70s. That first floor actually sticks out. So I think a lot of it's still there. It's just covered up. And this is, I think one, we'd love to see a major renovation of the first floor and brought back to its original glory. But since the 70s or so, I think it's had that shake, at least on the one portion of it in the transom areas. And this, I don't know when this arch was filled in. So no, to answer your question, we don't have a historic photo available.
So based on the Google Earth image that I'm looking at, it does look like the storefront's been pulled out a little bit further, a couple inches, maybe even more. And so there is a metal pan that extends past, and it looks like the awning is covering that. So I guess I would, I appreciate the awning more than the pan that's covering the alteration. I think the awning is more cohesive for the whole building. The material is questionable. Fabric awning would probably be more appropriate, but I do like how it spans the entire space. And it looks like in the past, there's been different signs on that awning and different textures on the awning, separating each storefront. I guess I would question if that's going to happen in the future. If there's an intent to put signage or storefront, names on the awning as it spans the building. But overall, I'm in support of the awning. I think a different texture would be appropriate. And then the question on what's going to happen in the future with signage of the other tenants. As far as the front door covering and signage, I do agree with what's already been said. It's awkward. It's not necessarily appropriate for residential building. I think the applicant touched on the point that the door is awkward already as well. A single door where people likely tend to loiter or stand around. I understand that a large opening or a large cover would draw more attention to that, and I think I would strongly support a redesign of the front door someday. But I'm not opposed to the extended awning that is currently there. I think it's not appropriate, but neither is the front door. So it matches the front door for that location. I also agree with Madam Chair that it probably should not be internally lit. But otherwise, I am okay with it.
Other questions and comments, or are there still a lot of questions of what's there? I mean, if there's still a lot of questions, I guess I am leaning towards having this tabled and asking if the owner can meet with staff to help us understand their intentions for the building in related to the canopy and or the signage. Because I understand that you've been, as the applicant has been brought in to try to help, and I think we're going to continue asking you questions that you can't answer. That I think it would warrant a conversation with the owner to understand what's the full intent related to the canopies, if those need to be on the table too, with this application. And then obviously the residential entrance. I don't think we can look at one without the other. And I would like to understand the full of what his plan is for the full building. But that's my personal opinion. I don't know if there's others, how you feel, if there's still, if others feel like there's enough shown that you can vote on it. If not, I would probably recommend that it gets tabled. And Mr. Musson?
Yeah, and to that end, staff is happy to meet with the applicant and the property owner on site. Would probably be easiest to better understand the existing conditions and what's being proposed and how that would actually work. So if that's amenable to the applicant, staff is happy to work on making that happen. Yeah, but we would need the applicant's consent to table if we wanted to take that route.
Do other commission members agree with that? I see, okay, others that are shaking their head. We would need your approval as the applicant to table you. The other option is that we could move forward with a vote. Obviously, with that comes the opportunity that we could approve you, but we could also deny your application, which means you would have to start over again in the permit submission application process.
I really do appreciate all the input. It's phenomenal, and I think it's best to table for that. But am I allowed a question?
Of course, go ahead.
Thank you very much. There was a woman, she was a worker who mentioned that she's not too far away from this location. Did I hear that correctly?
Yes, that's me.
Okay. Have you been in the area for some time?
27 years.
I believe you've probably noticed then that awning has been in eyesore all 27 years you've been here. Because of the nature of the neighborhood. I mean, there's been vinyl stockings over it, covering it. The bars that I've stated before, that wasn't addressed, unfortunately, by any board member, or for it to be structurally sound and to be able to support being in front of us. And all of them, they're bent, they're twisted. I think we should really address that as well, is in that particular neighborhood. Now we're going to put something up that is important to the structure of something that can be picked up and harm someone, cause property damage, is going to be installed for the sake of how something looks. I think that should be a precedent over how something looks, is to say what actually happens in this location, what actually goes down here. And you, having passed this building for 27 years, can attest to that. And as far as going with the businesses, any other businesses that we not only get, I'm sorry, but the client, imagine that approval anyways, for those individual businesses and what they wanted to do with their signage. And it would be very limited to some over the awning, which they would have to seek approval for. I imagine it would be in the same style for the rest of the building, or to have them painted onto the awnings, and which again would have to need approval in the future. But that's all I wanted to ask, and I wanted to bring up is the fact that this has been such an eye-opener. From what I'm hearing, the board would like it hearing. Since when has vinyl been reclassified? It's important.
I'm going to just stop you there for a second. We are really having trouble hearing you. We've been trying our best to hear everything that you're saying because we appreciate your feedback. And that is why I think, as we mentioned, we appreciate that the new ownership is willing and wanting to do an investment in this to really upgrade this building. But I do think we need owners' participation to give the background, if you cannot give it, of related to replacement of the awnings, if you're here for it, what the overall plan is for the signage plan for all the storefronts, and then the residential, entrance approach is a portion of that we are seeing that's on this table. So that is why we're asking for your permission to table this case so that we can have an offline with staff, yourself and the ownership to define those and answer our questions so that you could come back as soon as 2 weeks to be finalize your review.
Thank you very much.
Do we have your permission?
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. Then with that, I'll ask for a motion to table.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion to table.
All right, thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Mr. Musson, please call roll.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Director Merschman,
Yes.
Mr. Sambry,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Krasik,
Yes.
Dr. Williams,
Yes.
and Ms. Trott.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously. Staff will follow up with the applicant offline.
All right, well, thank you. Then you'll be hearing from staff offline. And then we look forward to seeing you back here in the future.
Thank you very much, Board. You guys have been great today. I do mean that. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We appreciate a kind review. We'll move on to our next applicant, the Marion Seltzer School located 1468 West 98th Street. New construction. Good morning.
Okay. Good morning, Madam Chair and Commission members. I'm Jeff Henderson with TDA Architecture, and with me is Holly Delasanti. Well, go ahead, Holly.
Delasanti with the Cleveland Schools.
So we're here to present the final design for Marion Seltzer. I'll just start.
Go right ahead.
You can next page. We just wanted to start with, I know it's kind of small to see, but kind of based on the comments from our last, from design review and from the commission last time through preliminarily, I kind of wanted to show some of the things that we're doing, some of the things that we did based on those comments. So, and I will review this as a list, and I'm going to go through these really quickly, but final site plan, one of the changes is that we met with fire department and there was some fire access drives that we had to include into the site plan. So I'll review that with you. Final landscaping plan. So what we have is we do at this point is we have a final layout of all the plants, and we also give, at this point, we're in like design development, so it's still in process a little bit, but we give options, and on the plan gives you options. Here's what we're thinking about for deciduous trees. Here's what we're thinking about for shrubs and that. So it's not final species, but it gives you an idea of what we're thinking about, but it is final placement. So that will show up there. Exterior lighting. So I have the photometric as well as the fixtures that will show. We have reviewed this several times, obviously, with the city, in conjunction with their rework of Cadell, and they're in the process now of going through that in the community with developing what that final design is. So there's a little bit of I call it a little gray zone on the west side of our property. That's sort of the interface between the school property and the park, which will, depending upon what happens, we may make slight adjustments with the final configuration of what happens, sidewalks and connections, things like that may adjust. So we won't know that until they kind of finalize, but they have been as a part of our process. When we designed the school, they were heavily involved in that. So, they've seen this plan and everything is fine from that standpoint. But these are just a couple of points that were brought up last time. The area of the windows, always a question. That's always something that everybody asks. I want more glass. So we have 10% of our classroom area, which is double what the minimum. So the state has a 5% area of class glazing in a classroom. We're at 10%, so we've doubled that, which I think was in the previous design as well. There was talk about the metal siding, so we have the wood grained metal siding, and that was just, it's over insulation, air barrier, CMU backup. It's all kind of typical construction that we've used on numerous buildings. The blue metal on the canopy and the sunshades, kind of playing off of the blue in the rec center, at the storefront there. So that was an idea in terms of trying to sort of connecting the buildings, making sort of cousins as occupying the same space, the same area. Brick detailing, again, we'll show that a little bit more, but straightforward running bond. Some of the accent panels, which I'm going to go over, this was the big change, I think, in here was the accent panels. Some of them are stack bond, some of them are running bond, depending upon where they are. So I'll go through that as well. There was a lot of questions on the glazed brick accents that we talked about last time. And if you recall, the whole idea about they speak 7 languages in the school, and we researched some of the countries and their artwork and the tapestries and things. That was sort of a driver for that part of the design. So what we've done is based on comments, and I think there was one comment about it looked like there were postage stamps that was put on the building. That was kind of the characterization of that. So what we've done is kind of brought all of the accent walls are now down at what I'll call a tactile level. So they're essentially lining up with the window, the first floor windows in terms of height, except for one, which is the clock tower one. That's a little different, but the rest of them are kind of brought down and more horizontal, and I'll show that as well. The very interesting thing about this was the workshop that we held with the kids. So we had this spring before school let out. They have Marion Seltzer has what they call an art club. It's not an art class, and it's not taught by an art teacher. It's a intervention specialist that teaches kids that wanted to learn how to paint. And so she does this during their lunchtime. So we met 3 times with them and went through a little quick process to try to get them involved in like what will these things look like. I was super surprised. After the first one, I'm going, this is good stuff. And I was really happy with where it went from there. So I'll share some of that with you. So we have the 5 areas that we had in the original design, same 5 areas: the main entrance, the outdoor learning garden, the north stair tower, and the 2 playgrounds. And those are the 5 areas that we included these accent walls. So I'll go through all this. You can go to the next one, which is basically conditions. The next sheet, next page, conditions from Historic West Cleveland that we met last week. Final landscaping plan, which I talked about. They wanted to document the hard and soft surfaces on the site plan. I'll review that really quickly on the site plan. Complete the north elevation door coordination. So we actually had shown, didn't show a door that came out of the stairway on our elevation. And, so we've corrected that and we've adjusted that. So that's all coordinated. Now it actually it's a better solution. It always happens. I'm not sure why that works, but it always happens like that. Photometrics, what I talked about, and the glazing details, which I'll talk about glass, because that was another conversation that we've had about the colored glass that we're using. So next slide. So this is the site plan. I can't point to anything, but so some of the adjustments from the last plan is as I mentioned, we met with the fire department. So on the north side of the building, you'll see there's cut a fire access road or fire access drive that runs along the north. And this is all still south of that large open soccer field. So we're not impacting that at all. The intent is to do that in a permeable pavement, so not concrete, but we talked about grass pavers. We talked about different ways of doing that. But our landscape architect says, ultimately it ends up looking like a driveway, no matter what you do. It's not really the best condition to grow grass. So permeable pavers gives it a little texture. It's different than a sidewalk. And that was what we decided to provide in that location. We do have permeable pavement also in the parking lots. The parking areas on the south side, you see the little sort of darker areas, those are all permeable pavement as well. So there's some consistency with material in terms of that. The, you know, the, yes, it's, you know, it's picking up so much of the site with building and parking and, but on the playgrounds on the west side, which are the gray and blue kind of areas, sort of they're opposite the classrooms. The blue is a soft surface, so that's the soft surface that we typically put with playground equipment. The gray area then is just asphalt, which is like we put four square and you know, we paint different map of the United States and stuff like that would be in that area. So that kind of shows that most of it is lawn, you know, the green area is lawn area. There's not a lot of it, but there is around. And again, remember that this is really part of a much bigger space. You know, that line that's drawn in terms of that like west property lines, even though it's drawn there, that space continues out. So it really, the school and the property all kind of melt together with the park. It's really not a hard line like that. That shows the landscaping then, and in terms of the proposed new materials that we would be installing in conjunction with the new school. Near Rice? Oh, the learning garden. So the learning garden is something that right now it's a placeholder. They want to work with their staff and kids in terms of determining what will, and you know, they want to grow vegetables, maybe have compost bins, whatever. Don't know what all that is yet. And it's not really necessarily part of this project, but it's something that the principal wants to be able to do sort of internally with their staff and students to kind of come up with what do you guys want to do? You know, that kind of thing. So it's a placeholder at this moment in that location. The main entrance is just to the south of that, about halfway down where that driveway comes in. Well, another drive we had to add, believe it or not, is you see that little finger that comes off of the Cadell lot? That was another fire access road that we have to put in there in order to get within 150 feet of that west elevation. So we looked at a lot of different solutions on how to achieve that, and like extending the one to the north, you know, across to the west, and we didn't want to do that because it starts impacting all that interface around the Tamir Rice Garden. So we wanted to kind of stay away from that as much as possible. So that's another piece that will be part of that. Everything. We'll go to the next sheet, which is basically the landscape plan. The next slide. So it's the same layout, and you see the little chart on the right hand side has the potential plant materials. So we have that. That eventually will get selected to final ones, but at this point they're kind of in the running. How's that in terms of what we want to use? Okay. Go to the next slide. These are some photographs of all that list. So you kind of see some visual images of the different trees and or shrubs and plants that we considered. So that would be in that there. Next slide then is our tree preservation plan. So I met with Jennifer Kipp yesterday after she had a chance to review it. And she was okay with it. You know, we're taking out, I think, 33 trees in that whole area. And we went through all those with her in terms of why certain ones needed to come out. Obviously, you have to build a building, so some of them have to come out. We're installing 39. So her gauge was like, we have to install new material that is equal to or greater than what we're taking out. So we're above that. So she was fine with that. So we do still have to get a permit. We have to go through urban forestry to get a permit to actually take down the trees, and we have to put protection around the ones that we need to protect, and they need to approve that. So that's all something that's in process, but she has signed off on this plan. So that's a good thing. The next slide is the photometric. So it kind of shows the locations. The red are the poles that we are proposing, and then we have the wall packs that are around the building, and you know, and all the light levels that are around there and at the property lines. Kind of a technical thing that we have to do, but that's that. The next slide are the two proposed light fixtures, the pole lamp, and the wedge on the wall. These are actually the same fixtures that were used at Clark, at the new Clark school. So the same fixtures that were there. So it gives you an idea. So the next slide then is our materials. So so these are essentially the same thing that we presented previously. The whole idea here, of course, part of this was the school in the park was the whole idea. So they wanted to, and all of our sessions that we had last summer with staff and community, and wanted to kind of have a sort of a more natural feel to the school. So that's what generated some of the sort of neutral colors for the masonry. There's 2 colors, plus there's the block that's on the gym. The wood grain metal panel, which we talked about, is again, we couldn't use real wood. We wish we could, but so this is a sort of a substitute for that, but kind of the same idea. And it's a 12-inch wide panel that we're using both horizontally in certain locations and then vertically, and I'll talk about that a little bit. The blue accent panel that is at the front entry, which you'll see some drawings of. Again, that didn't really change from the previous one. And we have sunshades that are over the classroom windows that are also blue. The four colors of the glazed brick that we're using in the panels. And again, some of the conversation early on was like, can we do something temporary? Can we just something that can be changed out? And I think I'm still convinced that this is the right way to do this, that we want to do it permanent. We don't want to have a situation where something gets changed out once and then it doesn't, and then it fades, and then it does some other things. We wanted something more permanent to kind of mark the moment, I guess, in a permanent way. And then the glass. So we have 3 colors of glass: clear, green, and blue. And there was some conversation about that as well. So we go to the next slide. I know this is silly, but this is my inspiration for the use of color. And when you look up through it into a tree canopy, you see the blue sky, you see the green, and that was really kind of, and the random nature of that was something that I thought was an interesting thing. And that sort of drove then the idea of how we, in a very simple way, how we treated the glass and the colors of the glass and where they would be. There was conversation about, and we proposed originally kind of a random placement of the colors. The main, and we'll look at the elevation, but the large glass in the classrooms is clear. So that is consistent all the way through. But the lights that are at the bottom, the operable lights, was where we were going to insert the color. And we wanted to do that kind of in a random way, not necessarily really a rational way, right? Because it was kind of, again, sort of playing off of the sort of random nature of what you see when you look up into a tree canopy. So, and Design Review wanted to see some color or pictures of glass. We didn't really have anything where we used blue and green together, but you go to the next slide, and these are, I don't know if these are great examples or not, but Campus International School, which we did, is all clear. And I think one of the things about glass, we all know this, is that glass isn't one thing, right? In different lights and different locations, it looks different. Even clear glass or anything, it takes on character of its surroundings for the most part. But that's a clear glass on the left. And then the one on the right is green. So there's a green glass, and that's all green. That's a Massillon Middle School. That was done probably 20 years ago now. Go to the next slide. And then, so the only thing I could pick up with some of the recent schools we had done where we've used multiple colors. And that's Garrett Morgan, which we use actually 3 colors. There was clear, there was gray, and blue. And I don't necessarily, you can see it pretty obviously at the front entrance there where the blue and the clear are together. You can see this, you probably see this from the freeway when you drive past on 2. That's the media center, and sort of the random nature of putting colored glass and together. So it was just the idea of that randomness. And you go to the next one, which is, again, this is Lorraine High School, but you can kind of see what different color glazing on an elevation can do to change the effect of the window. Just just the sort of the pattern of that and how it breaks that up, even though that's a very different character, obviously, than what we're talking about, but just the idea of how glass can break up I'll say in a very simple way, the monotony of a single glass. Okay. So that was my thoughts about how we utilize glass in this building. Next one now, we'll go into the glazed brick piece. And again, just to reflect the idea of this is the countries where the languages come from that they speak in some of the artwork. Next slide is my favorite one because it's where we worked with the kids. Again, the workshops that we did. You can switch. Did you switch? No. You can change it. Oh. The sliding is not going to show up. What we did was there was about 20 kids.
There you go.
Oh, there you go. There's about 20 kids that worked in this group. We gave each of them a kit of parts, which had essentially the 4 colors of brick, not exact colors, but the same ones. And then we gave them grid paper that were bricks we just said, we explained the whole project, we explained what we're trying to do, and then they just went. And that's how kids usually go. These were 7th and 8th graders. And after the first half hour, when they were done with the first session, I was like, wow, this is really cool stuff. And so we had 2 other sessions with them to kind of finalize what they were doing. And then we had them talk about what they did. And I'm sorry.
Yeah, I keep that meeting, so there's nothing showing up.
Okay, so
You still show up as him.
There's nothing.
WebEx, weird. Yeah, sorry. Pull it up on mine and.
you do that. I'm going to the restroom.
Sorry.
My momentum.
I know.
It's your strategy.
Jessica, do you want me to take presenter role from you, or do you think you're going? You're just the whole computer crash, or? Hey, you or me? Are you sharing it? Okay. Anyways, I think you can continue and the chair will join us on.
Can I continue or?
Yes, yeah, I think we should be good.
So again, it was like, we gave them each a kit of parts with the colored bricks and the grids, and we kind of explained the situation, what we were trying to do, and off they went. And they were really, really creative. And there was actually one group that just spoke Spanish and needed an interpreter. So there was an interpreter that when I was talking, she was telling them what I was saying. So it was interesting, kind of a thing there. So the results of that then, if you go to the next slide, if you don't crash again. So then we had to take all the stuff that they did and try to figure out how do we interpret this to the final thing. So in each of the areas, we were just looked at some things that were in, that we thought might be appropriate. Some are literally translated and some are interpreted. So this one was one that was sort of interpreted, the one on top on the which ended up being the long one at the front entry, and it actually got flipped. Like this one was like this, but the final one has it flipped, so it's like an arch almost, and we called it the arcade. The next one down was the girl said these were flowers. That's what she said on the right and left hand side, and this we thought, oh, this is perfect for the learning garden. So we're going to use that pattern in the learning garden. Go to the next one. These two are the ones that we would use in the playground. So they're like puzzle pieces. And again, these are almost literal interpretations of that, which again, I think are pretty significant. And then the last one, or the second last one, this was a clock tower. So clock tower is actually a stairway. So we used kind of the stairway. This was an interpreted one again, I guess. But we sort of used a stairway kind of pattern up that would be on the end of the building that would face the clock tower. So that was, I thought that was a pretty interesting way to go. And then the next one is all of them together, all the final ones together. So you see the arcade at the top, the playgrounds, learning garden, and the clock tower. You can go to the next one, which kind of puts them on the elevations. So the front entrance on the east elevation, the north elevation, you can see the clock tower. You can see the learning garden on the left, lower left, and then one of the playgrounds on the lower right. Go to the next elevation, and you see the playground, the other playground location on the east. Actually, that's the east. That is not right. That is west. I apologize. It's not right. And that north should be south. So got by me. Because there's nothing on the south side. That's against the parking lot. The next ones are just then 3D renderings, kind of like that's kind of at the front door, and you see the blue canopy. That's and again, you can kind of see the horizontal metal panel that's on the media center. So that big window that's on the second floor is in the media center. On the first floor, it's the administration, and that is the gym that you're looking at. The big wall that's on the left side there is the gym. For the next slide, then kind of more great one, but is the learning garden essentially, and then the glazed wall that's on that one elevation, and you can also see the clock tower on the stairway on the end of the building, the north end of the building. And then the next one is a little more. I think is in the playground. I think the fence has been taken away, but you can see the two actually on that one wall. And I think there's one more that shows the one on the one playground, the elementary playground, the last slide. So that's my presentation. So I'm open to any questions or comments or.
Thank you for the presentation.
Okay.
Thank you for the presentation and your patience during getting us back online. Before we get to our questions and comments, we would like to review the Design Review Committee recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project was reviewed by the Historic West Cleveland Design Review Advisory Committee on July 2nd. They discussed a lot, final details that they'd like to see, like final landscaping, site lighting was presented and submitted. They talked a lot about the glazing and the colors and how they should complement each other, and that kind of discussion about the permeable pavers and the kind of hard and soft surfaces around the buildings that's surrounded mostly by hard surfaces. And so bringing more of those lawns and grassy areas closer to the school. I mean, it's surrounded by a park, but still the school grounds. And overall recommended the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness with conditions for the final details and everything to be submitted and the site plan to have a better document the hard and soft surfaces for the site.
All right, thank you. Then we'll move on to public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We did receive one public comment for this project for the Marion Seltzer School. The comments came from someone who was not in support of the school construction, spoke to the loss of park space and green space, the importance of that park and green space for the neighborhood, for that area, and the kind of impact during the construction and demolition that will cut off a lot of that park space for the neighborhood use. And so they were not in support and wanted to see more of that green space for that area and for that neighborhood.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to Landmarks Commission Landmark staff recommendations.
And thank you, Madam Chair. Just as a reminder, this commission did approve the demolition of the existing Marion Seltzer School at our May 22nd, 2025 meeting. So we're just looking at the new construction today. The demolition of the existing school has already been approved. I think staff agrees a lot with the locals' comments and had some of the same, I guess, questions for clarification. Like the learning garden, is that going to be a hardscaped area or is that meant to be more natural materials? I guess curious to see more examples of the colored glass and how translucent is that or how transparent is that? Confirming that it's not like a spandrel panel. Looking through the minutes from when you guys saw this conceptually, November 14th, 2024, there was a lot of, the conversation was dominated by a discussion of color and use of color and the murals and how those could work better with the architecture of the building. You can see the schematic design that was presented then compared to but yeah, I guess that's just all four elevations of the schematic design that was presented in November. And so, fundamentally, it hasn't changed much. The murals have shifted around a little. I think the ones on the lower level are great that really allow the kids to engage with them. The stair tower one, I don't know if there's a way to make that more of an architectural feature instead of just an applied mural, like a change in the masonry around it, or maybe stepping it out, a few inches, just something to give it a good reason to be there, I guess. But I think generally we appreciate the effort. This has certainly come a long way. And yeah, look forward to the discussion from the commission. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Then we'll open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Who'd like to start us off? Director Murphy.
Thank you for the presentation and your work on this site. I know it's been a journey and really appreciate the listening that you've done. And I think the highlighting of the student artwork in the building is a really nice testament to both the community in the building and the cultural community surrounding the building. So I'm really excited to see this built. This is a site with a lot happening, right? With the Tamir Rice Memorial Garden, the rec center, Cadell Park, the new school here. It will really, I think, become a gem for the community and love to see CMSD being a part of that. And I appreciate the bike racks in the rendering as well.
Thank you, Director. Other questions and comments from the commission? Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate all the thought and effort that has gone into this design. And I really like the introduction of the color elements of referencing the artwork and cultural heritage of the many, many different ethnic backgrounds of the students. It looks to me, at least in the the patterns of the brick, that you're using more naturalistic colors, because I think a lot of the references, like the rugs and the weavings, were based on organic dyes. So I appreciate that. I prefer to see like there's fire engine red. I prefer to see more of a saffron red, you know,
Right.
in those elements. And I feel like that those more naturalistic colors should be carried over into some of the other color elements as well. I drove by Gallagher, it's been recently renovated, and you know, I found, you know, I like the introduction of the color, but I found that the colors were too, I hate to say it, Pee-wee Playhouse, as opposed to, you know, something that is just more pleasing to the eye, especially on that scale. So.
Can I make one comment? Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Ms.
No,
Anderson, are
by
you-
all means,
But
yes.
I think, you know, I absolutely, you know, the stuff, the colors that our fabrics get from, or, you know, plant materials are not the intense colors that, you know, the primaries. And so, you know, that was always an intent to try to not use the real primary colors, but I'm also limited with what I can get from a glazed brick. So the red is not red, it's a cranberry and it's a darker red.
Yeah.
You know, I tried to peel back as much as I could the chroma, I guess, of those colors to get them to be more muted. They're not muted, but you
Muted,
know,
naturalistic,
I
yeah.
think to your intent, I think that was always the intent of trying to do that. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the one thing I'd like to see carried over into some of the other elements. You know.
I think one of the things that will happen is that we'll bring that into the interior. So I think there's an idea of bringing some of that as well, pattern wise, color wise, into the interior. So it's not just out there, but
Right.
you know. So I appreciate your comments. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Other questions and comments? I guess I'll go next. I mean, I appreciate you making the adjustments and taking some of the feedback that I had given you. I really do love that you've used the artwork to at least do the inspirations for, you know, the installations in the future, and that they are at the level that the kids can actually enjoy it. And because the glazed brick is such a beautiful material, so I really do appreciate that. I hope that you would provide some signage for the kids and maybe, you know, people around the facility, so they actually know that it wasn't just something you thought up, that there was actually inspiration and connection to the community. Because I think that's such a great thing to bring them into the design and then make them proud of it. I think that would be great to have some plaque with even the kids that participated, just to memorialize them at the front.
Definitely.
I would agree with staff. The glass I'm comfortable with, just because I'm familiar with those materials and those colors, but I do think submitting them to staff, a sample of them to at least review
That's fine.
in person, maybe not to keep, but to review and have the names would be helpful. And then my only comment would align with what staff said, is the stair tower. That one's just not quite connecting with me personally yet because of the 3 segments of it.
Okay.
I think your previous, that one feels more like a mural. So that's the only one that I'm not 100% sold with, because there's 3 different pieces. It's not resonating with me yet. 'Cause
The
I think
triptych.
What's
It's a
that?
triptych.
Yeah, you know, but should it be one, you know, element in the front, in the lower portion, and then one in the upper portion, so that at least it felt a little bit, you know, you have 2 different expressions there. That's the only one that I'm not 100% sold on right
I
now.
think just to, and I understand what you're saying. One of the things we're trying to do is, you know, the tower is a very new classical thing, right? So it's got a base, middle, top. And I think that's, as simplistic as that is, I think that was the idea of splitting this into 3 parts so that it had a base, a middle, and a top. And to that level, that was the thought. But
Which I appreciate that, but it's not a tower. It's a flat application on a wall.
it is.
So I think if there was an expression of that, you know, then that would be more successful. You know, that had an architectural expression in addition to just the color expression. Or if it is just a flat application, you know, let it be something a little bit more unified with the rest of the architecture. But that's my personal opinion. I mean, I appreciate that you're giving that expression to the north, you know, towards the north, so that the community on Detroit can actually see, you know, all of these, because everything else is fairly discreet.
Right.
So like, I guess I'm more in favor if you put it in the upper portion of your brick, like maybe larger as one. But
So
it's nothing I object to. It's just my personal opinion.
The
of that.
pattern is something that is what you're talking about, right? The pattern is kind of like, if it was going to divide itself into base, column, capital, essentially, then the patterning of the coloring, it might be different, maybe more literal than than trying to just take essentially a pattern and cut it into three pieces.
Yeah, I don't think people are gonna get the clock towers, to be my personal opinion, but that's just me. I think it's, as an architect, you can sort of, pull it, with us because we like analyze those things.
Sure.
But I don't know if
Understood.
the lame person would do it, but that's my personal
Right,
opinion.
and they don't need to. I think they don't need to actually understand that if they don't, but it's just an application of that on that tall wall. But
Right.
that's okay. I appreciate your comments.
So that's, but overall, I'm in support of the project and the revisions that were made.
Thank you.
Other questions and comments from the commission?
Madam Chair, hi.
Yes, Councilwoman, go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to say I am in support of this, and also I am in support of Jenny Spencer, Councilwoman Jenny Spencer, of making this decision to agree to have another school instead of having a partial or an abandoned building sitting there. So that, saying that, this will be important to the neighborhood, and also that the kids will have a school to attend to in that community. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Other questions and comments, Mr. Loge?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also want to just commend the applicant. I think this is a great evolution of the design that we saw several months ago. I think that the decorative elements are. I think you responded, pretty well to those comments. I think that the overall, I would agree with my colleagues that I think the layout and the application of the glazed bricks in a much sort of tighter and much more architectural manner, I think really helps to highlight those areas of the buildings better than the previous version. So I just want to say thank you for that. And also with Director Mersman's comments about how these elements were created, and really, just the thought and the idea behind that as well. I'm okay with the triptych sort of clock tower reference, though I think that the previous version of this was a little bit more successful being a continuous band. I am really interested though in the detailing between the typical brick and these elements. I mean, is the intent that this is, just a hard line that separates the colored, the glazed bricks from the sort of the buff color, or is there some sort of detailing around that, or is there change in elevation or change in positioning of those elements? I think that would be I think that there should be something that really sort of makes this feel less just like a change in material, in planar, but to help really sort of, set those things apart as being something even more special than just a change in material.
Right. And I understand that. And I guess I hadn't thought about it at that point. It was always just a planar thing.
Mm-hmm.
If I think of everything, I think I would set it back.
Yeah.
A little bit, just so you get a little shadow line, it doesn't have to be detailed. I think it didn't want to have like a frame.
A big frame around
We didn't
it,
want to
yeah.
have that.
Mhm.
But I think the fact that if you push this back and you just get that little bit of shadow line, all sets it off, I think. And I think that's an easy thing to accomplish. And yes, I think it would it'd change what that piece would be. Right.
Awesome. I think that makes a lot of sense. So I appreciate the progress and the thought that's gone into all of this since we saw it last time. So thank you very much.
The one question that, I'm sorry if you did address this, but staff brought it up, was the learning garden material. Is that grass or is
So
it?
I don't know. Is it green? It probably is going to have a lot of plant material in there. There's probably going to be some hard surface in there. As I think I explained that this is a process that the staff wants to work through. So I imagine it could be brick material in there. I guess there's going to be beds or raised beds. So there's going to be, it's not a thing. It's seating. There's probably going to seating. We usually allow for a class to come out there. So there might be some seating that would, that would have a large enough area to seat a class. So it's a multifunctional thing. It's not a thing, and it's probably a combination of both, but I couldn't tell you what the plan is at this moment.
Sure. I would just say that the final plan should be submitted to staff for approval. If, when that is decided at construction. If it evolves after construction, we just need to know what it's going to be.
Yeah, I would think.
Probably a year or so out from construction.
What we will probably do as a conclusion to the building before that is we'll probably plant grass in there.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, grass for permit is what we need to know. And then if it
And
evolves.
that's what we'll show.
Yep.
And,
Okay.
and any improvements then will happen to that and.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
Is that?
Right.
Okay, perfect. All right. Mr. Lozier?
Sorry, I do have one more just clarification question. So, and this is, maybe in response to the public comment, but these different play areas are fenced off, but they do have gates.
Yes.
Is the intent that this is only use for students at school, or is this also for community use as well?
During school, it is, but after school and weekends, that they've always opened up their playgrounds to the public.
Okay.
So I think there's some little concern about the pre-K ones because we don't want necessarily, it's smaller equipment for smaller kids or smaller things. We can't really prevent it, but you get big kids on little equipment and things can happen.
Mhm.
So, but I think in general, the statement is it's open.
Mhm.
And I think that the city is also planning on building something almost adjacent to them,
Mhm.
like more of an outdoor, not so much confined like
Mhm.
ours are, but more of an outdoor kind of a thing just to the west. And I don't know what that looks like or what it entails, but so there's other things like that. But yes, the intent is that it would be open to the public.
No, I think that is an important sort of clarification too. So thank you for knowing kind of what the intent is and being able to respond to that. And so thank you.
All right. Any additional questions or comments, or would someone like to make a motion? Mr. Lozier, you look like it's on the tip of your tongue.
I will make a motion to approve as presented with the requirement to provide some level of change in plane between the main body brick of the building and the decorative glazed brick, with the recommendation to look at the triptych panels.
Okay.
Not a requirement, but a recommendation to relook at that. And were there any other?
The only one that I noticed to submit samples to staff for review
Glass?
of the glazing, just for the color glazing for their information.
Okay.
And that.
That's all I noted. So we have a motion with some conditions and a recommendation. Do we have a second?
A second.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. Mr. Musson, please call roll.
Hi, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Director Mearsman,
Yes.
Mr. Sandbury,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Trasick,
Yes.
Dr. Williams,
Yes.
and Ms. Trout.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
All right, congratulations.
you
We
very
look
much.
forward to seeing your
Appreciate
project move forward.
Yes. We are too.
It's been a process. That concludes our, I mean, it has, it's good. It's good. It's a good process. That concludes our certificates of appropriateness. We'll then move on to our schematic design.
How are you?
I do have a hard stop around 12:45, or I'm sorry, 11:45, 12 o'clock. So if I exit, Mr. Sandberry, I'm going to look to you because you're easy to look at to continue the conversation.
We'll move quickly.
There are many qualified people beyond myself here, so please tell
As
us.
it were. Yeah, hi. So I'm Brad Nosen. I've been in front of you guys many times with Property Advisors Group. This is actually kind of a personal project for me. I've been an Ohio City resident for about 15 years now. I've also really wanted to see a nice European style beer garden, not a beer hall, but a community space. These are typically kind of quiet, quasi public spaces that they're kind of shaped like parks, and they have nice trees and sitting areas. It's not like nothing wrong with the Hoffer House, but it's not a Hoffer House sort of beer hall, right? It's not Oktoberfest. So I had this dream, but I don't know how to run it. I do commercial real estate development. I don't know how to do a beer garden. So I reached out to Sean, who I used to work with at Noble Beast, and I said, "Is this a stupid idea?" He said, I want to make a beer garden as well. I don't know if you knew that. So I said, "Why don't you handle the beer garden? I'll handle the real estate part." He and his wife are on this call. They are in the Badlands with their children right now. So I don't know if they'll be able to chime in, but he just wanted to support. So we both live in the neighborhood. We looked at a bunch of different sites. This site at 38th and Lorraine I've been there for 15 years, and it's been vacant for 15 years. Overgrown, filled with trash. It drives everybody crazy. And I thought this is a good opportunity to bring this thing back to life. The building on the site doesn't have any architectural significance, in my opinion, but it is being renovated to meet the beer garden features. And then 3815 is a historic building, and that is also going to be fully renovated. You can see on the site here, it's a corner of 38th and Lorraine. Next slide, and I will turn it over to Wes here, who's acting as our architect as well. If you want to take it
Yeah,
off.
thank you. Wes Harper with Horton Harbor Architects. Good to see everybody today. As Brad mentioned, we're at the southwest corner of 38th and Lorraine. Across the street, or across 38th, is the back end of the Metro Health facility in the former Hollywood Video. Across the street is the, I believe, vacant Friedrich.
They're closing down.
Yeah.
Friedrich, bikes.
To our west, we have a vacant lot and then a one-story mix of retail and restaurant uses. And then to our south and southeast, we have kind of the beginning of the more residential portion of this area of South Alone. Next. Here we have the existing condition of the Lorraine Avenue facing portion of the project. At right is the 3813 and 3815 building. You can see it's a rather handsome structure that has had some, manipulations done from its, obviously its original state as kind of a typical early 20th century storefront building. So you have, the constantly shrinking glass area. And then to our east, which is to the left, we have, you can kind of see it here at the base of the two-story building, what was the service station of an old gas station. And then, sorry.
Oh, that's right. To bounce off that, we've taken care of the environmental remediation on this site. It's about $100,000 worth of work that we've put in to remediate the gas station site. So just want to be clear on that.
Moving the tanks.
Yeah, we had to close 3 in place and remove 1. We got no further action from Buster, so we're well on our way there.
Good. So obviously this site has been vacant for a very long time. Work is currently being done there again to remediate the gas station use. The existing two-story building is of course a mix of brick, stone, and wood cladding on the bay windows, and then a nice detail of the kind of Spanish style roofing above those bay windows. Next. Here's just a view a little further east, looking towards the side of the two-story building. You get a better idea of the scale of that existing service station structure, which in its current state is significantly dilapidated, structurally unsound in many areas. We will be looking to utilize a portion of that footprint in the project itself, but essentially, as you'll see, we're looking to kind of add on and get closer to Lorraine with this project. Next. At left, we have the northern facade of that service station. At right, we have essentially the rear of the two-story building and the service station. Existing stairway that you see there is essentially one of the egress ways out of the two apartments that are on the second floor. That portion will be completely rebuilt to current building code standards and egress. Next. At left is a view down the driveway that currently separates our property from the residential portion to the south. You can see a portion of the existing fence that exists on the parking lot that is directly south of us. And then in front of us, you see kind of the back end of that one-story retail structure. Next. Across the street, I think we're all familiar with this context. Next. Here we are looking east down the Lorraine, a little bit west of our project site. The building is kind of behind the trees at right. So you can see it transitions to one-story and mostly two-story structures before I think there's a handful of taller buildings to our west and east. Next. Here's a view down West 38th Street. That's our site at right. You can see a better view of the existing fence on the neighbor's property. Well, that's on our property, right?
That's on our property. Yeah, it's a few feet on ours. So there's new owners of that house. We need to speak to them, but it doesn't affect our plan, I think, at the moment.
On both sides of the street, there's obviously a different mix of architecture styles, more typical kind of worker cottages or worker houses on the west side, and then more ornate structures along the east. Next. So Noble Beast, as not everybody knows, is a current business in the city of Cleveland. They've been around for quite some time. Their brewery location is on Lakeside Avenue, just east of downtown. Really a fantastic space. These are the images of their current space on Lakeside. At the bottom right, you can see that there's a bit of vegetation under a skylight. In the center of the kind of communal restaurant brewery space. And that's one of the major components that we're looking to bring on site to Lorraine Avenue. Next. And this would be an additional location for Noble Beast.
Yeah, it's kind of a new concept, basically. Yeah, it's a beer garden concept there. So,
but they have a great food menu, and so if people aren't looking to get beer or other libations, there are plenty of options.
It's a full restaurant as you would have at the current location.
Yeah. So the existing site plan we have here, Lorraine Avenue heading west, say on the upper portion of the document here, east at the bottom. Essentially just showing the existing footprint of the two-story structure and the former service station. You can also see the location of that existing fence as well onto our property. We would be looking to maintain that driveway, but deliveries into and things being shipped out of the building would be taken care of off of the existing parking lot to the west, basically access from Lorraine Avenue. We've had great conversations with the neighbor over there to accommodate that, to keep as much of the delivery traffic off of West 38th Street. We recognize this is, kind of the overlap of the commercial Lorraine Avenue context and the more single family, two family context to the south. You can also see here directly to our south at left is an existing parking lot. And that basically serves the home directly to the south of that. So the site plan that you have in front of you is, if we go to the next slide, please. Here I print out a larger plan for your reference throughout the presentation. It's at a larger scale, but shows a little bit more of the context relative to this site plan. But here is essentially our proposal for a one-story addition directly next to the existing two-story building. And then that would serve as the kitchen at the southern portion of it, and then a kind of the main bar in the center of that one-story addition, and then bathrooms and entry towards the northern portion. At the southwest corner of that addition, we have basically a prefabricated walk-in cooler, which would serve the new kitchen. And then directly adjacent to that, between the cooler and the existing structure, is the new egress stair that would be built off the back of that. To our east of the one-story addition, we have what would be essentially a greenhouse structure, which would act as a four-season interior beer garden. There would be a fair amount of light coming in through all sides of that structure on the east, south, and north, and then through the roof itself. At the corner of Lorraine and 38th, we have the main outdoor patio space for the beer garden. There would be essentially plantings and guardrails along the perimeter along Lorraine and West 30th Street. Part of the reason for this configuration is to allow the greenhouse to act as a bit of an acoustic buffer to the outdoors, the more outdoor space directly at the corner, and really define that corner at Lorraine and 38th with vegetation, and then the built-in planters that we'll see here as the renderings come through. We're also possibly considering, if the city's interested, bike parking within the tree lawn along West 38th Street. Slide, please. So here's more of a detailed version of that site plan overlaid with the interior floor plan of the whole complex, essentially. Of course, at top, we have the renovated two-story building with a cocktail bar in the rear, and then the main dining room, basically facing Lorraine Avenue. We really wanted the views to go into and out of that storefront, which would be completely reconstructed based on a more typical early 20th century storefront. The stairways in the middle of the addition and the two-story building lead up and down to the apartments, and then storage in the basement for the restaurant. And you can see in the middle, the one-story addition, kitchen in the rear, bar in the middle, restrooms, and entry more towards Lorraine. The main entry is facing West 38th Street, but we have, you can kind of see towards the middle right of the site plan, it's basically the pedestrian entry off of the Lorraine Avenue sidewalk. It's essentially aligned with the eastern facade of the addition. So people enter that way directly into the beer garden, into the seating area, kind of beckoned by the greenhouse in front of them. And then they could enter either into the greenhouse through open garage doors or into the vestibule, into the one-story addition and into the rest of the complex. Next. Here we have the existing floor plan of the two-story building and the service station. We can refer back to this if you'd like. Next. And then here is the basement, second floor. Next. Here we have the Lorraine Avenue facing facades of the existing conditions currently at the top, and then the new elevation at the bottom. So you can see we'd be opening up that storefront to the maximum amount possible structurally. Large areas blazing at kind of the eye level, and then transom above. And then to the east, we have the one-story addition, which would be clad in a thermally treated wood, which essentially, I do have a sample of it if you'd like to look below. Really more of a, I'd say, both thermally, the finish, it's a product as opposed to simply ordering.
Smells good too.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
As opposed to using just, let's say, nickel gap lap siding. This is a product that is becoming a lot more available in the United States, but it's a product that comes in a lot of different finishes, but it is something that resists decay and fading of the finish relative to typical cypress or cedar or pine. In order to meet the zoning code requirement of having a 60% area of glazing at a specific, let's say, level along the front facade, you have a large area of glass into the one-story addition. And then to the left of that, we have kind of built-in boxes which would allow vegetation to grow within it, kind of spill over onto that facade, reflecting the nature of the current Noble Beast location. Further back, relative to these two facades, of course, we have the greenhouse, which is basically a mono-pitch structure that is set back, but for scale, it's obviously shown here relative to everything else. The height is essentially a function of the garage doors opening up in the summertime and then allowing the structure to drain towards the east. But again, this would be mostly transparent structure, allowing light into the space during the day, and then it would glow similar to a lantern, let's say, in the evening. Next. Here at the bottom is the eastern facade. You can see the scale of that greenhouse relative to the rest of the project. At right, you would have the outdoor space for the beer garden, and you can also see the one-story structure with this thermally treated wood clad. Next. Here are the rear elevations. You can see at the bottom, we have the exit stairway, one-story addition, and then we have the greenhouse, which would have a 6-foot fence basically along the southern end to block views into and out of the greenhouse relative to the residential context to the south. And we've since learned that there is a new owner of the home directly to the south of us. And we really plan on talking to them about acoustic management and things like that. And we do want to be sensitive to the neighborhood. Next. And then here's the western facade. Other than repair and maintenance of that existing brick, we're looking to keep that essentially what it is. You can see we do have one new door out of that portion or out of that facade. And that's another exit stair from the apartments above. Next. So here we have one of a handful of views here. This is looking down towards the the project here from essentially above West 38th and Lorraine. You can see structure at the top. There is a great opportunity there for signage. We're not saying that's a proposal right now, but that is essentially the signage that's on their existing structure on Lakeside. You can see the scale of the one-story structure and the greenhouse further south. Obviously, this is a night view, so you're seeing the greenhouse emit kind of yellowish glow. And then the main beer garden exterior space would, of course, be at the corner. You can also see the extent of the plantings along Lorraine Avenue. The entry would be defined by a portal and signage that we'll have better views of as we move along here. But I think we can move to the next slide. Thanks. Here's a view from the West 38th Street sidewalk. Looking at that greenhouse, we would be looking to, get vegetation to kind of overgrow portions of the structure and the space. You can see at right is the main entry into the project, which is defined by a slightly different wood finish. And the finishes of the wood itself is kind of a work in progress as we see what our options are with these pre-manufactured products. You can also see at left here, we're looking to define the perimeter of the overall project with kind of human scale, pedestrian scale light fixtures, which would illuminate the beer garden and the sidewalk itself. Next. Here's a view in the greenhouse looking towards the north. You can see the relationship to the existing Noble Police space. And I think there's even more opportunity in this case to really kind of accentuate that. Next. Here's a view looking towards the south within the greenhouse. You kind of see beyond the polycarbonate cladding of the greenhouse, the proposed 6-foot fence to block views into and out of space. Next. Here's a view essentially from the main entry into the project, looking towards the greenhouse at night. Next. And then here's a view within the beer garden, looking towards the greenhouse, the one-story addition, and the eastern facade of the existing structure. Again, you can see the vegetation kind of spilling out of these boxes that are integrated into the architecture to really kind of make this feel lived in and like it's been there for a fair amount of time. Next. Here's a view on 38th looking towards the northwest. You can see those lighting posts. The house itself. Next. Another view from 38th at the eastern facade of the greenhouse. These garage doors would be opened and closed relative to the weather, time of year, of course. Next. Here is a view kind of down the center spine of that entry from the Lorraine Avenue sidewalk. Right now, we're proposing kind of a blackened steel portal, and then we'd have signage integrated into that as well. It's still a work in progress again from the signage perspective, but it could be lit. Maybe it's not. We're not sure yet. You can also see the Corten steel clad planters along Lorraine, and then more of a guardrail with vegetation integrated into it as it heads towards the existing building. Next. Here's a view at sidewalk level from 38th and Lorraine. Next. And then here's a view looking east on Lorraine, looking at that main entry from the sidewalk. Next. Basically looking from the north side of Lorraine towards the existing building. We do have, the new storefront shown there for views into and out of that space for the restaurant portion. We then have, a new paint scheme for the bay windows up above. The white windows would stay, so that's something we'll have to integrate into the overall palette and response to everything. This is somewhat of a unique view where the one-story addition looks like it's in plane with the existing two-story building, but it's essentially set back, I think, 7 or 8 feet relative to that facade. So it is not flush with it from this. Next. And so here's the material palette. Obviously, the existing brick, the thermally treated wood to have the sample passed around, the polycarbonate greenhouse panels. We'd be looking at different colors of that, trying to figure out what kind of mood we're trying to set for the overall space. But that could be more of a yellow or green. We're not quite sure yet. Of course, there'd be a lot of ornamental plantings and some medium growth trees within the space to manage the sunlight throughout the year. Nice. And then some of the possible furniture selections, the classic beer garden table would be configured throughout the greenhouse and then the exterior, and then some ideas for movable seating or in the outdoor space. Next. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. I think the idea with the finishes and the plantings and all that is to make it feel like a park, as much like a garden, much like a park as possible. That's what brings families, it brings neighbors. It's a relaxed atmosphere, right? And so that's kind of our vision for this.
Yeah, and from a zoning perspective, this is in a local retail district, so this is an approved use. We're also meeting the criteria of the pedestrian retail overlay district, where we get some extra dimension from the property line for an outdoor cafe. This handout that I gave you shows the dimensions relative to neighbors' houses and basically just an overall view how it sits relative to the context. So with that, I'd be happy to hear any questions, comments.
Thank you for that presentation. Jessica, do we have?
Thank you, Mr. Stanberry. So this project was reviewed as one project by the Historic Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee. But in further review as staff, we're split it into 2 cases for Landmarks Commission because the current previous service station that's up for demolition is on a separate parcel, it's a separate address. And so it's being created into an addition to the existing building next door. So we're just splitting it with demo versus the proposed new construction and everything like that. And so the committee reviewed everything schematically, and so no action was taken in schematic review only. And some of the comments that the committee had at that time was concern about the proposed wood cladding, asking if the public uses can be brought closer to Lorraine and like restrooms and building closer to the rear. The scale could be adjusted to better relate to the historic buildings and the neighbors, potentially remove that last garage door in the greenhouse to create a buffer to the residential or create more options to block sound and light from the residential neighbors, potential for a brick parapet and on the site to give an illusion of height, and just wanting to see more options to successfully contain sound and light that would impact those really close neighbors on 38th. And so that was the committee's comments.
Thank you. And then do you want landmark comments or public comments?
Public comment. I'll do that. So we did receive public comment for this project. Received about 96 comments that came in prior to the deadline. Six additional comments that came after the deadline, and so will not be noted here. But of the 90 plus comments we received, 72 of them were in support of the project. The support comments were, some of them were fairly general about just support for Noble Beast as a business, support for bringing local businesses into the area, using that vacant lot, building momentum for more development in that area along Lorraine, having growth in the community and improvement in the community. Some of the other comments specific to the design itself mentioned the unique design with the outdoor space, the planting and greenery adding to the street, the unique and interesting greenhouse that's added, and how the site is friendly to multiple forms of transportation on that corner. We did receive 24 comments that were opposed to the project. These comments and concerns that were noted mentioned the impact to the residents along 38th and noise control, crowd control questions, off-street parking questions and concerns, noting that the proposal was too big for the lot with the amount of people that they would be expecting. The historic context was not considered. That it is a impact or negative impact to the quality of life for the direct neighbors, that the massing is missing along the Lorraine elevation and not compatible with the district or the commercial district or the residential district. There were concerns on traffic, site cleanliness, site control, the modern and contemporary design of the new addition in that historic district, and a lot of comments regarding to the need to work with the neighbors and not against the neighbors and have a block club or public engagement for the project. Just as a note of the comments that we received in support, about 53 of them, so more than half the comments received in support were from people identified as neighbors in the Ohio City neighborhood. So the surrounding neighborhood. In the letter, in the 24 comments in opposition, more than half were residents along 38th that identify themselves as living in that general block on 38th. And so it was a very wide range. We did receive a few, about 20 or so comments from people outside of the Ohio City neighborhood, which is interesting, from people living in different neighborhoods like the Short Shoreway, Gordon Square, downtown, and business owners from the area and from the Cleveland in support of the project. So a very wide range of comments that received for this project. And here's all the comments that we received.
One more comment, Carrie McCormick, the council person for the district also.
This is both support of this project, which was submitted.
Just going to mention that.
Oh, you're going to mention that. Thank you. Okay.
No, I don't
And I
have
will
to.
say, we do have intentions to meet with the block club at the end, towards the end of this month. We're working with Tim Del Pava, who I believe heads that block club. We wanted to make sure we got legitimate feedback from the two design review committees here, so that when we went to them, we actually had something and not just that would be something with some feedback, as opposed to just throwing something against a wall and then them telling us they don't like it or they like it or whatever, So that is our intention. They don't have any meetings scheduled until September, so we're doing a special meeting end of this month is the intention.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Jessica. Dan, is there staff comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Stanberry. And I guess we appreciate your guys' approach. I think this is how we would have these reviews work ideally. You come for concept, schematic, you get some feedback from the local committee and from the Landmarks Commission, and then you follow up with the block clubs, because that input is important, but it's not part of, our process necessarily. And it can get confusing when people are just taking direction from either one or the other, and get the cart before the horse.
Glad that's put out in public. Thanks.
Yeah. So we've received quite a bit of public comment on this project. So I did just want to remind everyone of that process, that we're only looking at this in concept today. So there's not going to be an approval or a denial. The commission is providing the applicant feedback so they can talk to the community and finalize the design at that point. After evaluating the feedback from both the local design review advisory committee, Landmarks Commission, and any block club or community meetings that are held, the applicant can either come back through the process with a revised concept or push forward and seek final approval once all the details are figured out from this concept. I will say staff shares some of the concerns that were raised in the public comment by the Historic Ohio Design Review Committee. It's a tricky case. We're on the boundary of a commercial and a residential area with no real buffer between. The lens of this commission is primarily focused on the Lorraine Avenue Commercial Historic District, which is both locally landmarked and listed in the National Register of Historic Places. While we evaluate this project using the Secretary of the Interior standards, we evaluate the context of each district site and building on a case-by-case basis. We support the idea of a beer garden and bringing an additional business to the neighborhood. We do have some concerns about the impacts the proposal could have on the adjacent properties. It's my understanding that this would be an allowable use under the property zoning. We're still waiting for final feedback from the zoning section. We'll pass that on to the applicant as soon as we have it. It is also, as noted, in the pedestrian retail overlay district, which requires, amongst other things, the building to be within a certain distance from the sidewalk and enlivening the street. And those are, similar goals that this commission has. So Landmark staff feels that in order to ensure the limited impact to the surrounding property owners, the applicant may be best suited to push the solid building back towards the rear of the lot and along 38th Street, while shifting the greenhouse and patio and garden forward a little bit to try to reduce the amount of noise spillage onto 38th and kind of push that activity out to Lorraine Avenue. As far as adherence to the Secretary of the Interior standards, there's a bit of flexibility here since the site has essentially been vacant for decades, and the last real building that was built up to the street here appears to have been demolished in the 1920s. So about 100 years ago, and then that gas station was replaced in the 50s or 60s with the current gas station. So it's, there's not a lot of precedent to say you need to build back up to the building here. It kind of has its own context as a weird missing tooth in the neighborhood. I guess it's a natural reaction to one, new construction in the historic district could be built right up to the street, given the history and context of the site. I think there's more flexibility on the placement of this building than we typically have. I will say, very happy to see the renovation of 3815 Lorraine, that building is due for some love.
Yes. Has a new roof and new tuck pointing already, so.
Very nice, very nice. And I would recommend reaching out to the storefront renovation program down in economic development, their NIMS in general. They, think they're reopening soon for the building program, but I think your timing might work out well.
Yeah.
So happy to coordinate that if that's helpful. We definitely think there's a solution here, and staff is happy to work with the applicant, the CDC, and the neighborhood planner to come up with a solution that benefits the neighborhood and the historic district at large, while creating minimal hardship to any individuals. We're supportive of the use and idea. We feel it's going to need a little bit more work before everyone can agree on what's appropriate and that it's going to be a good fit and make as many people happy as we can. Sure. So, and I will note the chair stepped out and she said her only comment is that the south elevation of the greenhouse should consider it being solid construction to help insulate from the noise and insulate the residential a little bit. So I think that's, along those lines.
That's been an option. We could integrate a concrete masonry, maybe a more decorative version than the typical cinder block gray, at least to eye level, so that's something that we're going to be considering as we go.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Messon. I guess I'll open the table to all questions and comments from the commission. Does anybody have any questions? Mr. Strickland.
Thank you, Mr. Sandberg. Operationally, if we could look at the site plan, I wasn't able to note a location for a dumpster. You commented about deliveries coming in through the drive to the west that's actually owned by the neighbor. I would like to see that memorialized, perhaps even a permanent easement that allows for that use on a permanent basis in case the ownership next door changes. Okay, so you do have dumpsters
on our property.
identified there.
And there is a Mr. Strickland, a bit of a setback relative to the existing structure. So we'll see what we could do in terms of the easement, but we do have some space there that the dumpsters could be dragged to Lorraine for maintenance.
Right, yeah, just logistically, that obviously needs to be worked out. Given what I anticipate to be a highly successful project, there's gonna be considerable waste generated, so that really needs to be worked out. And also operationally, maybe based on your use in the current location to try to deal with concerns of the neighbors. Will there be any live music, or are there exterior speakers planned for this location where sound might adversely impact the neighbors?
I cannot speak for Noble Beast. I can only speak on the real estate side of this, but my understanding is that if there's any sound, it would be low level. It's not like a large, high volume sort of place, like not with like rock music playing out of the speakers. I think it's supposed to be very much a relaxing sort of beer garden outside. And I know Sean Yasaki and Jolene, the owners of Noble Beast, at our last meeting said they're committed to being good neighbors. They live in Ohio City. They've lived in Ohio City for probably as long as I have. So, but I don't want to speak for their operations specifically. That's not my area of expertise.
Right. Obviously, I would advise that, you be prepared to address those concerns and talk specifically about how this facility would be operated, especially from a noise perspective. I think it's a great project. I would be in support of it in terms of phasing, because we would entertain a motion for demolition separate for approval of the proposed additions. I'm satisfied that we've received enough information that I would feel comfortable approving a motion for demolition. So if it benefits the applicant, you could prepare documentation for consideration. That's my opinion, but you could prepare documentation for approval of the demolition permit if it helps the project to advance that portion of the project. But great project, and I commend the applicant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And through
Mr.
the,
Musson, did you
through the,
want to
through the
follow up?
acting chair, just as a course of process, typically when we see a demolition proposal with new construction, we see it conceptually like this through the new construction first. We conduct a site visit before we would approve any demo. I mean, is this an actual demolition, or is the building incorporated? I think when I saw it in Ohio City, I was picturing it as a rebuilding of the addition, but the current building isn't actually, it doesn't connect through to the building.
Well,
It's a separate building,
Might,
right?
but it's not probably a formal structural connection.
Right. So there are two separate buildings. And also, I want to reference the two parcels. We've submitted this for consolidation with the county to become one parcel already. So that work is done. So that may simplify things for you guys. I'm not sure. But we've applied for that. And then if looking at this view here, our intention is to connect these two buildings. And Wes, correct me if I'm wrong, the flange of 3801, we'll call that the northerly flange, sticking out that dog leg, that would be demoed, correct, Wes? And we would demo and create an opening between the two buildings, and the additions would be built on top of that. We're not talking about a full.
In the end, a fair amount of it is likely to be
demoed.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I don't think I guess just speaking from my own perspective here, I don't think the commission is going to push back a lot on the demolition of the existing structure. I think it's just a matter of course, of process. Like Mr. Strickland was saying, he's comfortable with it now. I think from staff perspective, we'd say, let's, do our site visit. And then if you want to come back for demo in a couple weeks or a month, whatever suits your timeline, you can come back and request that I think without having final plans for the new construction sorted out. And I think the commission would be supportive of that, just given the nature of the existing building.
Makes sense.
Thank you. Is there any other questions or comments from commission? Michelle?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I see that Noble Beast is a very popular outfit. They seem to have a lot of support. Are we discussing the exterior of the existing building that's going to be retained? Are we discussing it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I noticed on the information that we received as the commission that there are two exterior doors. The one in the center of the storefront and the one to the left, and they are attractive, historic looking doors. The one has the oval glass and the other one is kind of a craftsman style and
On 3815 on the.
correct.
Okay.
Correct. And I strongly would like to see those retained.
Sure.
Yeah.
So the one on the left
yes.
goes directly
Goes to the
up
upstairs.
Upstairs.
Yeah.
So that's staying.
Okay.
I don't have any designs on replacing that unless I don't think Wes you're.
Yeah, unless, can we go back to the context photos? Maybe that first one that shows that primary facade.
Yeah, I think I'd even like to.
You can't really see the doors in that.
Yeah, and that serves the upper front unit. So.
But it has sort of a craftsman. The lights divided are in kind of a craftsman style on the door on the left. The other one has the oval window. There was it used to be Nick's and now it's Proof, I think. They retained the door.
Okay.
Yeah, they retained that. I think it was a very similar door that they retained. It's hard to see now because a lot of the stonework has been darkened with time and pollution, but incorporating some of those stone colors, I think, into the wooden would probably I think enhance the building.
Okay.
I want to see complete engagement with the neighbors by the city as well as the applicant. I think their concerns are legitimate and they need to be addressed and responded to. I agree with staff in that orienting the new construction portion towards the south and the east of the vacant parcel might help mitigate, noise and congestion issues.
I don't imagine.
Yeah. It's the new construction that's going alongside the existing building, and it's the green rectangle.
Oh.
And that was also the staff's recommendation, and I mean, in agreement with that.
We can explore that. I think a lot of it has to do with the functionality of how these two buildings connect.
Yeah.
And how they lay out, but it's something we can explore.
Yeah, maybe just setting it, and I think setting it back would also be helpful. I think you activate Lorraine, which is what you really want to activate as opposed to West 38th. And I think it would mitigate the design differences from this very contemporary new building and the contributing existing building by setting it back farther. And then way you can have more greenery and whatnot up in the front. But again, I cannot emphasize more that the neighbors have to be on board with this.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're happy to go through that process. We just thought we needed to go here. or else,
Excellent,
You know, 'cause
excellent. And
we
the
can make
city
those
as well.
changes, Right.
Yeah.
We need to hear your guys' feedback in order to make legitimate changes for these things. We could study that. I get into, we'd have to talk to Noble Beast on how it lays out between the flow between those two buildings.
Yeah.
Because it's important for them to have an operation which can run throughout the year as well, right? My original idea was I was
But
gonna
I
buy
think
this.
some of this is there's restrooms there, maybe they can be moved, you know, that kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess part of, I think the challenge, like with the PRO, you know, you're trying to push up close to the street. And when I look at it, I feel like the restrooms are just there because you need to put something close to the street to satisfy that PRO. Yeah, I don't, maybe it's, you know, Landmarks is happy to try and have some conversations with you guys and planning and see, you know, it's a unique project.
Can you
So,
forgive that
so maybe,
PRO?
yeah, so maybe, you know, you get a variance on that. It's sort of which takes, you got two zoning overlay districts, basically. You've got the pedestrian retail overlay and the historic. So which one takes more precedence? Which ones kind of have to prioritize? And, you know, happy to have that conversation and put the people
Yeah,
in
I mean,
planning.
I think, we haven't sent anything to zoning yet, just because we recognize this is kind of a unique approach to it in general, where in some ways, in actuality, the two-story building is kind of the presence on Lorraine. The one-story addition in previous schemes was further back. It had more seating in the front. And even where it's at right now there's a larger dimension given to outdoor cafes along the PRO. So that's kind of how we got here, I suppose. And the layout as it currently is, again, is a direct function of the operations and the preferences of Noble Beast.
Yeah, you only have really one point to pass between those two buildings.
Yeah.
Is a part of the issue here.
Yeah, the rear half of the existing structure is actually elevated a handful of steps.
It's strange, yeah.
So it kind of pushed certain program.
If you can go to the actual floor plan. So that point right there with the lobby, the vestibule and the lobby leading into 3815, that is the only point that you can feasibly pass between these two buildings. So we can't go any further back. Maybe the restrooms can get kicked out to where, I don't know, Wes.
Well, we did look at that with Noble Beast.
We'll have to talk about it again, yeah.
Their kind of centralized bar with the greenhouse was their preference. And it does function very well here. So that's, again, the background on how this all came together.
Yeah, and the reality is someone walking by isn't going to know that the restrooms are behind that wall. Like it probably looks more awkward in plan than it would feel in reality.
And the window that's there, you know, it is into the hand washing area as opposed to, you know,
it's fluted glass, you know.
Yeah, it'd be a fluted glass that kind of distorts, let's say, people that are in there, but it still meets that zoning criteria. And and then the other half of the facade is obviously looking to kind of match the branding that Noble Beast has kind of generated over the years.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Is there any other questions?
Thank you.
Any other questions from?
One quick question. On the original building and the entrance going to the units, the apartments upstairs, there's that wrought iron element. And I noticed that it's not retained.
That was an oversight on our part.
Okay. Oh, so yeah, it makes the building stand out. Yeah.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fix it.
And I think I have an old photo of this building that if I can
Really?
dig up, I can share with you guys. Because we talked to a previous owner about going through storefront renovation programs. So I recall doing some research because that was one of those questions, like, how old is that thing? You know, like, has that been there long, or is it added in the 70s or what? But I can try and dig that up.
Yeah, I'd love to have it. I reached out to CPL. They didn't have anything in their photograph collection.
Any other commission comments, questions? I guess I'll give some input. I do agree with staff's recommendation. Maybe look at moving the bathrooms and the greenhouse rotating. Is the greenhouse going to be a 3-season space?
4-season.
4-season.
It would be conditioned in a way that kind of takes the edge off. Where in the wintertime, you'd still probably want to have your coat
They're
if
gonna,
you're sitting outside.
like Jukebox has that sort of permanent tent in the winter, which they heat. They use like a blower fan, basically. But you can sit out there in the winter. It's a little chilly, but it's not bad.
Okay.
This would be a radiant heat.
Yeah, I guess I would encourage reevaluation of where the bathrooms are placed and maybe switch the greenhouse and bathrooms, reconfigure that a little bit. I'm in full support of this. I think it sounds awesome. Personally, I live close to where Platform Sour Brewery beer garden was, and I enjoyed it. I don't think there was a lot of noise. It wasn't too distracting. It was a great place to walk the dog and walk by and stop for a beer and whatever. I thought it was a really great addition to the neighborhood, and if you guys want to move there, come on over to that side of the neighborhood too.
Interestingly, they are also thinking about offering like breakfast sandwiches in the mornings and on the weekends. So, I think with them living in the neighborhood, they kind of have a pulse on what they appreciate from a service perspective. So
It's kind of it's call it Lorraine Beer Garden by Noble Beast, and it's a full day. They want to be kind of a full day place, right?
but it wouldn't be staying open past midnight or anything
Right.
like that.
So
Their hours are still.
And as far as the historic building, I think what you have designed for the storefront is great. I really like. I like that it's bringing back what was likely there. It's very sympathetic to the historic building, and I think it's a great design.
Thanks.
Yes.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So I'm also fully in support of this concept here. I think I'm also a longtime Ohio City resident, and I'm really excited that Lorraine is really starting to become, activated as it has been. Sort of not partner, but it's sort of like looking at like West 25th and how that's gotten so much development has built up over the years. I'm really, really, really excited to see, this happening on Lorraine and
I
working
agree.
down Lorraine.
That's
as
why I
well.
wanted it there. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, this is, one of those missing teeth in the, in the fabric of Lorraine that has a lot of opportunity, more so than just a sort of a sketchy plot today. So really excited to see something happening here, and really excited about the concept of this beer garden here as well. I think that there is a legacy of these types of businesses along Lorraine. I mean, I wish that Platform was still still kind of actively down the street. Overall, the idea and the concept makes a lot of sense to me, and I understand completely kind of the way that this project has sort of come together. The connection point being really the crux of the design problem here. I think working in ways to solve that, I think, or really understand kind of how all of this can continue to work in an operational way that still does address some of the neighbor concerns. I think that there is some merit in if there was a way to figure out how to have more sort of solid massing along 38th, just holding that that edge. And
Greenhouse, you mean?
well, I mean, of the greenhouse, I think potentially, but even the 1-story massing, along 38th could be something that's interesting because one, it provides again that well, granted, the building that was out the corner was torn down in the 20s, so there's but looking at other other blocks, you're holding that corner and holding that edge, I think also provides some opportunity. The interesting thing, would be that instead of this being a sort of a greenhouse that gets attached to the side of this 1-story structure, it becomes maybe more of a courtyard sort of atrium sort of space, which could be interesting. And maybe that's where you enter into, and maybe that's how the connection happens between the new side and the existing historic side. That's not to say that, what you have here currently, with some tweaks in response to the sort of the neighbors sort of commentary. But I think as just looking at it as another idea and reconceptualizing how the functionality of this facility might work with really that the greenhouse being the jewel, the centerpiece of and the crux of sort of the project could be interesting conceptually.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, other than that, I do also want to just thank you both as well for being upfront and committing to working with the block clubs. And I would agree with Mr. Musson too, that I think that and the way that you've handled this as well, it coming before this body, the review bodies, to have something to respond to and be able to react to have a more meaningful conversation with the community, I think is also helpful, and it provides a more well-rounded, more well-informed conversation, because I don't think that we're negating those comments from the neighbors also. And I think being able to hear a little bit more context and have that to be part of the conversation with the residents, I think is also
You're offering design solutions to their concerns, basically, which is helpful for us.
Yeah. So I mean, other than that, I think that I like the juxtaposition of the different types of building elements. You have the sort of this the greenhouse element, the more modern sort of infill building, and then the respect for the historic. So and what I also appreciate in the renderings to the street level renderings is creating a defined edge at that corner to really hold in sort of the activity that happens there, versus it just sort of being a fence or something that spills out directly to the sidewalk too. So I like all of the component pieces, parts, of how you've thought conceptually about these things. It's now really about what's the next sort of iteration or next level. But I think all the right component pieces are here, and appreciate you being respectful of the community's response, and the neighborhood response too. So
Great.
yeah, appreciate the comments.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lozier. Any other comments or questions from the commission? Not seeing any. Do you feel that you've received enough comments and suggestions from us?
I think we could study the suggestions that we heard today based on the bathroom and take a look at that. And then are you otherwise, I mean, do you otherwise agree with the Ohio City design review, or just as far as, I mean, or how do we take those into account? Or do we just take you into account? Should I even ask the question?
Take both.
We'll take.
Yes. Yeah. Just, short answer, take both. But yeah, ultimately, the Ohio City Design Review Committee is advisory to the Landmarks Commission.
Right.
So this is the body that will be making the ultimate issuance.
Correct. I just haven't heard their
comments
points reiterated by you guys, necessarily by your team. So, okay, we'll take it all into consideration.
I guess I have a question to the chair. Are there any particular comments made by the Design Review Advisory Committee that you wanted additional feedback from us on, or?
No, I mean, I think their comments were very clear in what their concerns were. we'll certainly take all of them into consideration along with yours. I don't think there was any one that stuck out specifically. So I think we've had, I guess to answer your question, I believe we've gotten enough feedback to proceed with our end of things. Come back to you after going to the neighborhood, allow their comments to kind of, filter through what we do and go from there.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thank you, everybody.
So that concludes our schematic review. Next we have minutes, past meeting minutes to approve.
Yes, yeah. Mr. Chairman, we have the February 13th, 2025, February 27th, 2025, and March 13th, 2025 meeting minutes that were emailed out at the beginning of this week. Unless anyone has any corrections or comments.
Does anyone have any corrections or comments? Is there any motions anyone would like to make?
I would move to approve the meeting minutes of February 13th, 2025, February 27th, 2025, and March 13th, 2025 as written.
Mr. Strickland, we have a second.
I'll second.
Thank you, Mr. Lozier. Mr. Musson, can you please call roll?
All right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Mr. Sambry,
Yes.
Mr. Trasick had to step, or Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Dr. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the motion passes unanimously by those who are still present.
Thank you. Next, is there any administrative reports?
No, nothing, no significant reports, just that we'll probably be trying to get a site visit scheduled for that 3801 Lorraine building, since it's, and we apologize for the, I guess, confusion as to whether that's a demo or, it wasn't really clear when we first received the plans. So we'll get something scheduled for that and let you guys know if you want to come out and check it out in person.
Okay, thank you. With that, I think we'll adjourn. Thank you.